And our deliverables at the end of the day is this first initial communication on the planning. We will have our audit report on the financial statements, the consolidated financial statements, the communication, which will be another report of the audit results, and the management letter, which would provide our recommendations on potential improvements in internal controls. The next page is your client service team. So these are the individuals who will be involved in the audit. There's only one new member this year, and it's another assistant accountant. So everybody else is consistent with the prior year. And George Ernst actually is the manager this year, and he has actually been up here for the interim planning. So he would have been introduced to management at that time. The next page is the audit timetable, and it's very high level. We're flexible in terms of when you ask us to come in, but there is a firm deadline on the other end because the report has to be into Service Nova Scotia by the end of September. The next page is the fee schedule. So you'll see there will be no changes in the fee, and the fee hasn't changed actually in a number of years for the audit itself. And this comes with a few considerations. Obviously, that management has prepared all the items that we provide in that schedule and is ready when we come in. And this just gives you a list of some of the items that they prepare for us. And that's the content of our report. There are 3 appendices. I already talked about the independence letter and the changes in accounting standards. But the first appendix is actually our engagement letter. And it's still in draft. It is with management to be signed, so it just outlines our relationship and sets out the contract that we have. So I'm open to any questions, concerns, anything you'd like us to think about this year?
Councillor McIsaac?
Thank you, Your Worship. Is there anything in your report that we as councillors or CEO should be concerned or worried about in any aspect of your report that you just gave?
Thank you very much for the question. When we came and did our initial planning and our discussions, there was nothing there that caused us any concern that was going to change our audit approach. It should be consistent with the prior years.
So you're happy with what you've seen in the books and
so far, but we haven't done the audit yet.
Okay.
We've only been in to do the planning
The
to
planning
help us
of it.
set our audit process,
Okay.
which we come and do late May, early
okay,
June.
great.
Yeah.
Then you answered my question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Gloria. I got a question. As you know, we're going to be having a municipal auditor in the next year or two. Is your company, is Grant Thornton, going to be providing any training of that, or do we just, maybe the CAO, or do we just pass the audited financial statement to the municipal auditor and they work with that?
So your municipal auditor general is still under discussions. I know that they have asked you to set aside money for this in the future, but what the municipal auditor general would do is they're going to come in and they would do specific program reviews. It won't be auditing your financial statements. It will be auditing what we would have called value for money auditing. So it'll be looking at a service and it will be saying, is your service being delivered in the most efficient and effective way to your community? Wow. So it's a totally different type of audit than what we do. I don't know that they've not hired, they haven't set a mandate or anything. It still will be a ways away yet, I think.
That's even better. Good. Any more questions? Good. Thank you very much, Gloria.
Thank you for your time.
I can't see your lighted also like that. If you do that, that's good. Just in case. All righty. Staff report, CAO report. Go ahead, CAO.
Thank you, Worship. I believe Linda is passing around copies of my report. So if you have a chance to review it, you'll probably notice there are a larger than normal number of items that have not been started. That's due to the fact that the council meeting was last week that those were generated from. So have a look at it. If you have any questions, please to answer them now or in the future.
Oh, thank you. Yep. Any questions for the CAO? Fire Department report. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't
Just a point of information, Your Worship. There seems to be a number of people in the audience today. I'm just wondering, are they going to present, or are they here to watch? Or I'm just curious as
I
to
would say-
their status, because I don't know whether a request has come in, or is it unusual we don't get a large crowd at our Committee of the Whole meeting, so I'm just curious what the status was.
So the status, I would venture a guess, is 9A. Am I right? This one? 9AA, so the Milton School Committee. Go ahead.
Could we maybe move them up rather than have them go through the whole, sit through the whole meeting, if they wanted? Or maybe they want to sit through the whole meeting.
Good? Doesn't matter to me. No, we can do that. Certainly. Okay. Well, no, they're interested in town business now, come on. Okay, so we'll do 9A and then we'll go back up and do well, we've got the reports here, but do they stay? I can do the reports first, all right? No? Okay.
I want to thank the council for seeing us at such short notice. But some things have come to the... Oh, I'm sorry. Is that better? Yeah. I want to... I'll try. I want to thank you for seeing us at such short notice. It has come to our attention some things that have happened in the last 10 days that has brought us to this point. In June 2009, concerned citizens got together about a proposed land use. Our concerns led to the following petition. Since 1864, Milton School and Playground, situated at 126 Brunswick, have been in existence. Excuse me. Yarmouth Municipal Planning Committee is proposing a changing of zoning of the property from I-1 institutional to R1 residential. I, the undersigned, support the development of the property as a public green space / playground / park to be rezoned O1. This is a signed petition. And here is the petition. And here are the signatures on it. And let's look at it realistically. There are 1,247 signatures on this petition. The petition was signed by 923 people who lived in the town and another 300 who use our parks and facilities. If you can see this area, those red marks are the people who did not want a park. There were 923 people who wanted the park. Now, this voice was against, and I'll use my teacher voice, against a virtual representation of the number of people who signed our petition. And you can go into this one. There are actually more people here than have attended any of your hands-on deck meetings. Well, these people wanted a park. 1.8 acres they asked for. Now, when I speak to you, I don't speak to you as an individual. I speak to you as all of the voice for these people. Now, if I can get by here. Thank you. So just wanted you to, if you could hold that up, because it really shows. These people were serious Actually, Mayor Mood, your name is on the petition. Your responsibility is to represent them. Now, there has been some changes in the agreement that was made, and I was wondering if you were going to contact them and tell them that the agreement no longer exists. I have their phone numbers. I have them in that petition. These petitions were serious, and they are holding hands, just like all hands on deck hold hands for this town. So what did the people get? The request to the people who voted for them to represent them. They got half of the 1.8 acres. That 1.8 acres was going to be a park forever. Against the will of the people, we had to be satisfied with half of what we asked for. You got the other half. You got the half that you paid $1 for from the province. Why did we only get half? Because the town was desperate for revenue from taxes of the properties it would receive. We could have demanded, we could have made a ruckus, but instead, as honorable citizens, we agreed to half the area with the provisions that the land removed from the original request retained certain covenants. Covenants that were agreed upon by the formal council and the group of citizens, which Bill Hood at that time spoke on their behalf, December the 10th. These were the covenants. First, that the land use of the site reflect the size of the properties surrounding them. That is why, if you take a look at the map, which I got from the town, would you? You will see that this is the park, these are the two properties. There's a reason why the allocation is as such. One large lot on the side facing Elm Street to reflect the sizes of the lots around it, and these smaller lots to reflect the size of the lots on Huntington Street. There's a reason why these lines were drawn there. They weren't arbitrarily just thrown onto the map. There was a reason for them. And this is in your town planning. So, sorry, here. So the covenants were agreed upon by the formal council and a group of citizens. Firstly, that the land reflect the uses. Sorry, I'm going over this again. Why is there a bigger lot facing Elm Street and two smaller lots facing Herbert Street? See your own map, and I just showed it to you. Someone did not arbitrarily draw the line. It was an agreed upon condition. From your new plan, which I just got here for a proposal, we find out that suddenly 11 Elm, which was the large lot, is now 11 and 12. This is contrary to your own guidelines for sustainable developments. Secondly, that the buildings put on these lots would be single-family dwellings and could contain a granny suite, but would not, and I repeat, not, be a duplex or multi-family dwelling. For those on council with short memories, please go back and watch the tape. There's no tape, I find, of the meeting of December the 10th, 2009. But after the meeting, the Vanguard quoted, following the meeting, Councillor Danny McIsaac, chairman of the Planning Advisory Committee, said he believes council has found a way to reach a compromise with the residents of the neighborhood. These people. McIsaac said councillors have already discussed possible covenants for the developments that would go into the R1 portion of the land. So why are we here? Because there has been a derelict of duty. Either the previous council or the chairman of the planning committee did not direct the planning committee to put into place the covenants in honoring our agreement, Neither did they get back to us to say there would be no restrictions and that we would have to have further discussions. Perhaps the planning committee decided to ignore the agreement. Perhaps the planning department disregarded the instructions. Whatever the cause, it does not negate the agreement to the people of this town. Where do we go from here? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Welcome. If you would state your name, please.
Yep. Good afternoon. I am Doris Powell, a stakeholder in the corporation known as the Town of Yarmouth. Before I start, I did want to say there's a couple of my neighbors who would have been here had the schools not been closed because they had to take care of small children. Imagine that, small children here. And also, I did want to say one thing that was from a neighbor who she had asked me to say for her, and that was Betty Cleveland, who is literally would be adjoining these properties. I don't know if you know her, she's in her 80s. She did want to come, but she was not able. She said to tell you, shame on you, you broke your honor. So, contrary to what some may think, I'm a peace lover. I don't like wars, I don't like fights or quarrels. I just want to live my life in peace. However, if someone punches me in the face, I will defend myself and the people of Milton. The right to defend ourselves from tyranny is a right we are all born with. I'm also not a naysayer or a ne'er-do-well, but I do firmly stand in the light of truth and will defend it for the jewel that it is. I have a little story to tell you about my time here in Yarmouth. In the last 7 years of living in Yarmouth, I've planted fruit trees. I have almost 30 right now in my yard, believe it or not. They're still small. Each one of these trees with good water, light, and fertile soil, and bees, will hopefully produce good fruits, which I hope to share with my neighbors. If someone would walk by these trees and wondered what kind of tree it was, they would know it by its fruit. You shall know them by their fruit. This council could be compared to a fruit tree. But what it has produced recently, in my opinion, is rotten to the core, and the worms won't even touch it. You say that you are representing us. I don't think you know the meaning of the word. So far, what I've seen is that many people on this council represent nepotism, cronyism, big business, and an old boys network that can be traced in part back over 50 years. The fact that most of your meetings are held in secret, or should I say, in camera, just a little off from on camera.
First of all, Doris.
So, let me finish, please.
No, you can't finish.
Why not?
Because anybody that comes here needs to be at least a little bit respectful, and there are rules in place that say
You broke the rules with us. You broke the rules with us. You
But
had an
we have
agreement and you broke it. You broke the agreement with us.
We have rules for what we have to discuss in public and what we don't.
Okay.
Simple as
So
that.
we'll just stick back to what's going on.
Please.
Okay. This land is about a Milton legacy, not profit. Your memories are very short. It is obvious that now after over 1,200 Miltonians spoke in 2009, that you have forgotten your agreements with us, us, the ones who elected you. Maybe you yourself may forget that you signed the petition yourself. Mayor Mood.
Haven't forgotten.
I know jobs can sometimes change people. But we remember, we collectively remember, we have a long memory, one that goes back to the days of Clara Killam in the old village of Milton. You know, that lady who put up a lot of her own money along with her neighbors to build that school originally. Wouldn't it be an enlightened thing to go back to villages when governing was small, close, and neighborly? You know, a time when everyone had a voice like the good old days. Now that we have already fought and won a difficult battle to keep our land back in 2009, now to us, that land has magically transformed itself into what is effectively sacred ground to the people of Milton. If you've noticed, it's been quite used in the time that it's been a green space, just sitting there without any benches or trees. This reminds me of a quote: "You can't serve two masters, God and money." Have you heard that, Gushu? Have you heard that one? But you know, that's fine. I know we're in a barony system, and you know, you gave a oath to the queen, and we got the necklace, and you know, all that stuff. So we understand that. We said we wanted the entire plot of land as a park. It was absolutely unanimous that the people had spoken, and yet we were still dictated to that we could only have half. Half is not what the people originally wanted, and we were not given a rebuttal to disagree with what we were given, just half. That being said, our silence may have been read as some kind of agreement, but I think we were just tired of fighting an uphill battle for something that deep down we knew was already ours in the first place. After all, the people of Milton originally paid for that land out of their own pockets, privately funded, privately owned. We were just trying to keep it. You who have voted to defy our agreement, whoever those are in the group there, I consider you morally bankrupt, and I hold you, each of you, personally responsible for the blight and degradation of what could happen to this town and what's already happening. Everyone here should be well aware that the town of Yarmouth is a private corporation. If you don't know that, you can look it up on the Manta website. There are actually two towns of Yarmouth: Fire Services and Town Council. We as taxpayers are the stakeholders of this private corporation. When we pay our taxes are our agreement that we agree with the direction that the town is going in. And what direction is that? Arthur McDonald, a dedicated town planner, was certainly not told what that direction was. And what about the longtime tenants of the Killam building who continued renting even during the tough times? The farming people that working out of a trailer got evicted out of their land, which was originally set for agriculture. Were they told about this change in direction? You just don't treat people like this. I, for one, and these people here with me, do not agree with the direction that you are going in regards to this piece of land. I, for one, have no confidence in the ability of this council, especially certain people, to run this corporation. You know, remember the tree and its fruit? Aren't you supposed to prune a tree down that doesn't produce? No confidence, that's what I say. No confidence. Therefore, you have broken your promises, agreements with us, and so in the way of the universe, the karma is always returned. You now reap what you have sown. Respectfully submitted, Doris Powell.
Anyone else?
My name's Robert Powell. As my wife Doris just spoke. I would like to go back in history to St. Maurice, who was a Roman legionnaire. He commanded the Roman legion, the Thebans, from Thebes, Egypt. He was commanded to go north of Italy to defend what was left of the Roman Empire against the Gaulish hordes of Christians. Well, it seems the Roman government didn't do their homework, St. Maurice was also a Christian. There were 6,660 Christians asked to fight other Christians. He refused once he found out he was told to go kill Christians. He advised his commander that we serve a higher power and that he should also seek to serve the higher power. He was promptly told to decimate his legion. Most people don't know what that means. We all use that word callously every day when you do your countings. Decimate means to kill 1 in 10. So they dutifully, as Christians, killed 1 in 10 of each other by drawing hats out of their helmets. Then the issue was commanded to go kill more. And St. Maurice said, we can't do that. You've heard us already. So the issue was ordered to decimate themselves again, which they did, because they serve a higher power. So then, the issue of an order again. Go slaughter your fellow brothers. St. Maurice again said no. Then, the rest of the legions slaughtered what was left of St. Maurice's legion. They're buried in Switzerland. Who do you want to be remembered as? St. Maurice? Or the commander? I'm done.
I have nothing prepared for you folks today. I only found out about the meeting last evening during the storm. My question, and I'm president of the Milton Improvement Society, and we have a meeting next month. My question is, we planted trees just there last summer, supposedly in a park area, so what becomes of those? And really, how significant were those last summer to anybody? And I think that's very sad because of the Society's 100th birthday. Other question that's on my mind is also, I know when Phil was mayor, he promised the Melanson family something as a memorial to their dad, who was the janitor there at the school. Dearly loved, and we had a little park there at one time with a sign with his name. That's all gone, and I feel it's totally forgotten, and I think that it should be something significant that we don't lose sight of. And that's my great concern. I love the trees, and those two that are there now are memorial trees. One was back Queen Victoria's great jubilee. The school children came out and wore crowns and flags, and they had a great day. And that's why we planted the tree last summer, and we had 2 memorial trees for our members as well. So my great concern is the trees, and we need trees. And I hate to see the whole area become housing development of some sort, because I love green spaces. And I know my society does too, because look what they started 100 years ago.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
Just to answer Carol's question on the trees, those are going to be on the park. They're still going to be park, and the Doug Melanson Memorial Park is with the Communities in Bloom, and they're going to be developing a project with community involvement for that remaining
Phil, could I
green
have
space.
that in writing?
Sure, we can, next community.
I'd love to have a letter to take to my society and
Yeah,
say, Doug has not been forgotten.
Yeah, and I know, I worked hand in hand with Doug a long time with the Knights of Columbus, and at the bowling alley, I spent a lot of time with Doug, and I know his family very well. And that was a promise that I made,
Yes.
that we would remember Doug in the park. And Councillor Langell, as the chair of the Communities in Bloom, might be able to craft a letter as chair of the Communities in Bloom Committee to the Milton Improvement Society on that. Mr. Langell?
Go ahead, Councilor.
Just to speak on that, Carol, yeah, the park is still very much there, and CAO, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but there's no real change been made in that area. The only thing I think we're looking is there was a 6-foot section that was small section, maybe the solicitor can clear me up on that one, but there's a very small amount that's involved. The park is still happening. Doug Melanson's park is still going to be, we're still developing that. The trees that were planted by the Milton Improvement
But that
Society
was
will
by
be on the
us.
park.
Yeah.
Will be
I
on
don't
the
feel
park. that it's still in the works. We're still
But
following
we
that
haven't seen
agreement.
any action on the town side doing anything with that little park area.
No, we've been waiting because the property has been up for sale. We now have, there was an individual that's apparently interested in it. I'm not sure where the transactions on that one. So we didn't want to proceed until we knew exactly what was going to be happening with the other lots. But now that the other lots, there seems to be some progress in that direction. It's the intention of the Communities in Bloom to develop that in the next year or two in the plan of the Doug Melanson Park. There's never been a change to that. I can be CAO, maybe you can correct me on that, or somebody, but I think that's always been our intent.
CAO?
Yeah, the motion that was made last February 14th, 2013, was that Communities in Bloom and the Milton Improvement Society be consulted on a park design, and it specifically mentioned the Doug Melanson Park on Brunswick Street. So that is on the books of council, that the Milton Improvement Society will be consulted on that.
Our next meeting is April the 17th at 10 a.m. at the Yarmouth North Church in the,
Can you send
Okay.
him an email or myself and remind us, and we'll
okay,
be there.
okay, because we just would like to have it in writing that we're going to still have a green space. Okay,
And we'll be there.
thank you. I'll see that you get the emails. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Good. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Where do we go from here? What's the agreement? Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to jump in. Promised Councillor Mooney wouldn't say much today. It wasn't aware you were coming. My recollection is, being on the former council, was that we did have a presentation in the petition of 900-plus residents. There are 6,900 residents living in the town of Yarmouth, and your representation was made. And we did enter into discussions, but I can be corrected by the solicitor. I don't think there ever was a legal agreement entered into between the town and any group. I know the previous council moved in a particular direction, which we did, but now you have a different council with 4 new members of council on it. So there has been a change in direction. So I'm going to defer it to the solicitor or the CAO to see if we have an agreement. I'm not sure if we're talking bargaining and agreements. I know there was discussion.
Yes, no, there was no agreement. The town council, the day by resolution, agreed to proceed with the creation of 1 lot, and the resolution was that if the lot was conveyed, it would have certain restrictive covenants on it. This council resolved to subdivide it into 2 lots and to convey it without the restrictive covenants. There was no agreement. It was a decision of council, which this council changed.
Does that mean that everything that in previous councils throughout history that is no longer regarded because the council in power decides something else? We're still the citizens. We still pay our taxes. And we didn't solicit the town, nor did we have a referendum. We went house to house and walked for a month.
So there's just no legally.
Agreement for us, so we're breaking our agreement with you. No taxes for you. I'm not paying my taxes. And I know people that are so angry about this, they're not paying theirs either. I've talked to at least 12 people in one day. They are livid. Okay, so as a stakeholder, as a corporation that I don't agree with the direction you're going in, I withdraw my consent.
I too withdraw my consent. Be represented.
You're not representing us, so we don't represent you.
We good? All right. Go ahead, Councillor.
Your worship,
Yes.
Your worship, in all fairness, you could say and you can do whatever you wish when it comes to taxes, but just be aware that I think it's 14% interest that you will pay on it. So just to let you know, and I'm not going to argue the point, just so you know, just so you know. Well, I just wanted to let you know, that's it. Yeah, that's great. That's fair, yes, yes, and you too. Thank you for your, thank you for your presentations.
Okay, good. Just address it through me, Counselor.
Comment on Mrs. Hood regarding councils, previous councils. I've been around, this is my third council sitting on, and yes, it does happen that a council of the day, you will find a new direction by the next council. It is the prerogative of the next council to change a direction in some cases, and we've seen that in the past in some areas, and that's a prerogative of the time.
That is the case. Why weren't the people on that petition then advised of your change of direction? We still had an agreement with the town, with the council. It was the representative. You were one of them.
Oh yeah, I agree, but I mean, my point to you is that there was no agreement. We went at a particular route as the citizens asked for, and basically it was a subdivision of the lots, which we discussed, which we did. We agreed to the park, which we did, and pretty well everything has remained the same with the exception of the restrictive covenants, as the solicitor pointed out. And my understanding is that this council moved in the direction to change those restrictive covenants so that we could accommodate some development on that street, because it just is not happening. It's not, they've been for sale. I mean, if the 900 and some odd people on that petition all equally were so concerned for that piece of property, $100 each could have bought the land, and they could have had a park.
And we weren't offered to do that, and how do you know we won't do that now? You're going to give us that?
The price that it was advertised. It was advertised. It was advertised. It was advertised. There was real estate agent signs all over that property for about 2 years.
Tender bids, the stipulation was a single structure on the entirety of all those lots. And I was told the town turned that down because it was a tax issue. We wanted all the lots and all the taxes. So this is really about your tax revenue.
Yeah, we have a neighbor that was going to buy two of them and put one single family on that, one single family house.
Short
And
memories.
he was turned down.
Shame.
He was going to put a regular 2.5-story nice house on two of them.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You guys broke your word, you were all in dishonor, all of you. Each one of you are in
Fire-
dishonor. Whoever broke your word to
Fire
us,
Department
you're in dishonor.
report. Chief? Any questions for the fire chief? I had a little chat with him earlier. Everything's going great. That's good. Yep. Okay, no questions? Planning Department report. We've got that in front of us too. Go ahead, Counselor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, and it's my favorite topic, and maybe the CEO can answer me this question. On the Development Officer Land Use Bylaw Enforcement Report, new issues dated February 2004, regarding 136 Haley Road, we have an advertising flag sign for Leon's. Why can't we have flags? I mean, is there some valid reason? And I know this has been brought up, I remember this has come up before, and I've had other companies say that we would love to fly our corporate flag, you know what I mean, for whatever reason. TriStar, for example, flies its corporate flag from a flagpole. Yet Leon's cannot fly their flag from a flagpole. Why? Is there, I'm just curious, you know, can we, is there any way we can accommodate some of this? I mean, I'm really into this making the town a business-friendly town. And I mean, to me, it looks good. I mean, I drive by Haley Road every day, and I'll be honest, it looked good. I like it, personally. And I'm wondering, how can we accommodate this business? They're struggling, they're trying to get started, and here we have an issue.
Okay, CAO?
This is an example of the sort of issue that we have within our land use bylaw, in that we have strapped the thing down pretty tight in terms of what you can do in terms of sign sizes and descriptions and so on. And we've defined many types of signs. And if you don't put up a sign that complies with all of our details, then you get the letter that they received at Leon's. The intention of council, and it's clear, is to be more business friendly, to be more open and inviting, and to be less prescriptive in terms of telling business how to do business. Now, council over the last number of years have amended the provisions of the signage bylaw probably more than any other bylaw that we have, and that is because two things: is that it is very prescriptive, and obviously businesses come up with new ways of advertising, and so they don't meet with our prescription. So instead of stepping back and reviewing the entire thing and asking ourselves, what are we doing, we've nibbled away at it over the years. And we've said yes every time somebody's wanted to amend it. Council has said yes. So this council's direction is loud and clear that we want to be more open and inviting, and so that whole bylaw needs to be amended to be less prescriptive, more open and inviting, as council's intention is. And so yeah, this is an issue, and the letter has been sent, but at the same time, the intention around the bylaw is to make it less prescriptive.
Go ahead.
Don't laugh when I ask this question. Is it a nice letter or is it a threatening letter?
Well, the letter that goes out is not a warm and fuzzy letter, I'll put it that way. But that's changing as well in terms of how we deal with these, what I consider fairly minor infractions or steps across the line. We need to pick up the phone or go visit our businesses and tell them when we have an issue, that when we rub up against the land use bylaw. Sometimes it's as simple as somebody may have a sign that's actually complies with the requirements of the bylaw, but they didn't apply for a permit. So rather than sending out a letter that isn't intended to be a nasty letter, but isn't at the same time very warm and fuzzy, a phone call or a visit from our staff to say, here's an application. We see what you're doing. We like that you're here. But we have to do.
How can we work with you, kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly.
So in this particular thing, we're going to be working with Leon's maybe to
Well,
accommodate
we
them?
need to amend the bylaws, what we need to do on this one.
Okay, well, as they say on Star Trek, let's make it happen, kind of a thing. I've got a real issue with this. I mean, I remember at one point of absolutely maniacal idiosyncrasy back before I was on council centuries ago, the Canadian flag at one point was considered to be a sign. I remember Joe Bishara just about going through the deep end when he found that one out, that you couldn't have more than one Canadian flag on a building. I mean, you're quite right, CAO. We have developed that so tight. I mean, it's bizarre. And we've got to really lighten this up and accommodate these businesses, because the more visibility we can give them, the better it is going to be for us.
Councilor McIsaac?
Thank you, Your Worship. My question's for the CAO. Who goes around and looks at this stuff and finds out that somebody's got a flag, and they got to run right back to wherever they run back and say, I got to write this letter. I hate to write it, but I'm going to write this letter and probably make his or her day and send it to them. Would not a phone call to explain the situation sometime do just as good with a little honey than vinegar? I don't know. That's an old saying, an old cliche, but when I read some of these reports on here, it just sometimes just makes my hair stand up on my back, and I'm just saying, people's got too much time on their hands, or maybe we don't need too many people with too much time on their hands. I don't know. It's just a flag. I know it's part of the bylaw, and I'm really excited that you did mention that this council is in the process of moving forward with some, I hope, some drastic changes, and this will be no more. So my question is, who does this?
Go ahead.
So imagine a scenario where you're opening a business and you go through the process of getting your permits and putting up your signs according to the bylaw, or maybe you've been in business and you've done something that has stepped across the line and you've received your letter, anyway, you're aware of this provision. So you see the new story go up and you see the new flag go up and you say, wait a minute, how come they can do that and I can't? So then you call. So then the staff person has no choice but to deal with it because the bylaw approved by council is being violated. It's been pointed out. Now, the person can say, you know, I'm choosing not to enforce that bylaw, but then they put themselves squarely in the crosshairs of a councillor who might then get the phone call and say, ask me, why aren't staff enforcing the bylaw? So the answer to the question is these things are generated oftentimes by complaints, sometimes by staff observation, for sure. The letters go out, but the answer to the situation is let's get the bylaw right, get the strategy in the bylaw right, so that it truly does reflect what council wants for the community. And when our staff enforce that bylaw, I'm sure you'll have no issue with the enforcement efforts.
Good. Any more questions on planning? Operational services. The engineer is near. Councillor Langell.
Well, and again, just something maybe CAO can follow. I wouldn't mind to get a copy of that forest management plan that the engineer, I had asked for this several months ago. And I would like to get a copy of that, if at all possible, because they want me to do an open line thingy on Sunday, and I wouldn't mind to read the darn thing before I go in. So if it's at all possible to get a hard copy of that tomorrow, ideally, if that's possible, or an electronic version or whatever. That's of the PICEA plan.
Forest management plan. Do you have a copy of that you can get to Councillor Langell?
We received the final report.
Yeah, I was going to bring it up at our next watershed planning review sometime.
I wouldn't mind to read it before Sunday.
Good. Any more questions for the engineer? Finance Department. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have I have a question on something that is not on this on your report today.
For the engineer?
That
Yeah.
yes,
Go ahead.
if I may address it to him. On the street lighting for the rest of Main Street going south, do we have a timeline? Do we have a budget? Do we know how much it's? I think I remember hearing it's going to be about $100,000.
I put it in the budget for consideration. That's depending on. We approved it for approvals. We approved the capital.
All right, but that's as far as it's gone.
Yeah.
What my question is how far is that going to take the lampposts all the way down to Argyle Street? Is that covering absolutely everything? How much do the rest of the lampposts actually cost? How much of this is the $100,000 going to cover?
I think it's from 4th Street to Argyle Street. That's correct,
33 lampposts. And is that just the purchase of the lampposts, but the installation and the connection, the power?
All inclusive.
All inclusive. Okay, well, that sounds like a bargain,
Good.
right?
Good.
Yes and a half.
Okay.
Everyone naturally would like to see underground wiring done, but that's not in the cards, is it?
Not for the power wires, no.
Not for the power wires.
All the land wires under the oversight.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. My ears are still a little,
All the wiring for the decorative lighting will be underground, but not the power lines themselves for the electrical system for the homes.
The lights for the standards will be underground, but the power poles will still be there.
oh, all right. All right, all right. I'm sure whatever you yelled at me is good news, but I didn't
Same as
hear you.
Water Street.
Oh, all right. Thank you very much.
Good. You're welcome. Okay, any more questions for the engineer?
Why don't
Good.
you just turn on your microphone instead of yelling
Why don't you turn on?
Exactly.
Okay,
Point I was
I
trying to
know,
make.
I know.
Respectfully.
No, oh, mine's on. I thought you were gonna say that to me too. Yarmouth Recreation. Frank, welcome.
Hey, nice jersey.
Oh, my goodness, hold on a second. We'll get Frank and then we're coming right
I'll be
back to
quick.
Jerry. Just don't ask for any money.
With all the snow, it's caused a little bit of few chinks in the armor, I guess, a little bit with some of our activities and programs going on. It seems like every Wednesday the past 2 months has been Snow Wednesday. So just a few things to report on. Community school use has been very active and busy, except on Wednesdays. We've got a new program happening at Carleton and Port Maitland. They're youth activity nights, one night a week at both of those schools. And pardon me? From what age? From 7 to 14. And I don't think even if we get a 6-year-old or a 15-year-old, we're not turning anyone away. The concept is part of our physical activity strategy and trying to get kids out moving. And our leaders have been trained with some physical literacy, and we're trying to get kids moving again. Volunteer Week celebrations are coming up in Halifax on April the 7th. Both the mayor and warden will be attending with our volunteers of the year. The town, I'm getting a look, maybe not now, but
someone will go. Someone will go for me.
Excellent.
Yeah.
The town of Yarmouth's volunteer is Al Moley, terrific volunteer for many, many years with the Lions Club, Curling Club, Food Bank. Big list there. And the municipality of Yarmouth's volunteer of the year is Joe Bashara, and everyone knows Joe and his work that he's done with not only with the memorial clubs at Maple Grove and the high school, but just a general overall great community volunteer. So that's happening on Monday, April the 7th, and then we have our local volunteer celebration back here April the 27th on a Tuesday evening right here at Town Hall.
You'll be sending out an email?
I will be sending out an email, yes. Make sure we get in your calendars. Summer jobs advertisements are going out for 24 summer seasonal jobs with our department in all facets of programs and facilities.
Is that the same numbers last year, Frank?
I think we have worked, we tweaked a couple positions, cut them back a little bit, and added an office assistant this year. So we've got one additional position this year, but we've tweaked some of the other positions to allow for that.
I have a question about that. Who pays for that? Is it mostly grant money? Is it not as in Frank grant money, but it comes out of your regular budget?
Comes out of our budget. Yeah, we plan for it.
All right.
Also included in that is the lifeguards at Lake Milo,
Okay.
which is a big expense, and we plan for it. The days of big checks from the province or the federal government for student employment are gone. We usually get anywhere from $200 to $3,500.
Wow.
And years ago, I can remember when I worked in the District of Argyll, we'd get checks for over $12,000, $15,000.
What I thought, yeah.
So.
Good.
We have After the Bell starting up again. We were supposed to start up on this week on the Snow Wednesday, but we have junior high after school program for junior high females starting at Maple Grove, and it's a program that we started up last year and we'll keep going on for this year, and that we did get funding through the Office of Health and Wellness for that. A few things that are coming up on the horizon. We're looking at archery. Archery is something that we've had a lot of questions about, inquiries. So we're looking at setting up some archery courses to get some instructors, and then we'll be able to deliver some archery clinics to children and youth, or adults, whatever the interest may be. Skateboarding clinic, we're looking at doing the same for skateboarding, looking at trying to train some local trainers to deliver programs to children. And we are looking at doing a program very similar to our neighbors in Lunenburg, Queens, where we're looking at getting some funding to purchase some adaptive recreation equipment for people with special needs, to help them get into the water, help them ride a bicycle again, and a neat program there. So lots of things happening, and if there's any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Any questions for Frank? Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Finance. What you got, Jer? Councilor Lancho?
I think a question may be more for the CAO, but he just fled the room, so he knew this was coming.
Not her.
This would be like a little routine. Jerry, a question, and I should have asked this to Gloria in retrospect, but I'm thinking last year, the audited statements, when we do them, of the water utility, we haven't had a meeting of water utility in a long time, which is long overdue, but the audited statements are incorporated into the town, but are they dealt with as a separate document? Because where the water utility is its own incorporated entity, I don't remember seeing those as a separate document. They're kind of wrapped into the town, and I'm thinking from a legal point of view, should they not be in their own little book? I'm just wondering that. I'm just wondering. Well, I don't mean binder, but there wouldn't be very much to it. But I'm just thinking, ideally, where you're an incorporated, and the only reason I'm knowing this, I'm going through several incorporated bodies right now and phasing them out and bringing them in. And this has been brought to my attention that if you do have an audited financial statement, and Councilor Dawes, you may want to, because I know you're involved with this as well, if you're dealing with a private corporation or private entity, your audited statements are unique to that corporation. They're not normally are blended in with another corporate entity. So I'm just wondering where we stand on that.
Oh, CAO. Go ahead.
Yep. The statements are presented separately, but they're in the same bound package as the town of Yarmouth. That's never caused us any issue. They're submitted to the Utility Review Board every year in that format. Never questioned about it. I think that's just evolved through time and history and practice. I don't know, Greg, if there's any, the solicitor has any reason why we couldn't continue, but I think that's... No.
Yeah, our only statement that's audited is our consolidated statement. That's the audited part. Now, in order to get there, they have to do, the review and expense review and make sure our systems are all working properly and our policies are being followed for the whole organization. So in our non-audited statement, our town operating statement, that's where the water utility falls, and like Jeff said, we submit those to the Utility Review Board, and they've never said, where's your audited statement?
Because I'm just wondering that maybe they should be at least accepted by the utility in a motion form at a meeting. So they are on the books, because we don't do that. We just kind of blend them in with the town. And I know we are the utility. All of us around this table form the water utility. So it's kind of convenient just to whip through, and the last thing we all need is another meeting. But on the other hand, I'm just thinking for process to keep I's dotted and T's crossed. Similarly, we should be accepting the budget of the water utility should be accepted at a meeting as well, and then pass at the meeting, and then et cetera. So we should be looking at a meeting of the water utility, in the next little while. So just to throw that out.
Good, I agree. Councillor Mooney?
Thank you, Your Worship. Jerry, how's the new financial system looking or coming?
It's been a lot of work so far. A lot of just information being passed to the company we work with, Procom, and it's moving along okay. We'll still go live effective April 1st. We actually may not use the system until the 7th or 10th in there.
So all the information is passed to the people that are
They've got our
providing...
GL detail, our receivables history and all that stuff, and they're loading it in the system. They've done some testing on it to make sure it works when they arrive here, but all that stuff won't be completed until probably around the 7th or 10th, and that's when you'll see them here doing the training, and we'll go live at that point. So we've got a plan in place just to how to cover off that first week or 2 weeks, even if we have to.
When you go live, do they bring anybody in-house, or do you have communication with the company, or how's that work?
No, there'll be, at least 3 of their employees will be here for 4 or 5 days with training and showing us how things work. I think by the end of tomorrow, we're supposed to have a test system on that we can all access and actually kind of go in and play around with it a bit, so.
Dan, you want me to ask you a question? No. Okay, I know what I was going to ask next, but I'll let you.
Go ahead, Counselor McIsaac.
One's going to be for the CAO, and one's going to be for Jerry, but how do you like being mayor now?
How do I like, I love it.
Good for you.
I'd love it even
Good for
more.
you, good for you. It gets better. It gets better.
It gets easier.
Yeah, it does, yeah. Anyway, my question for Jeff will be, Jeff, on the water utility, can we have a joint meeting of the committee of the whole, or would it be a council meeting that we could have the water utility meeting at the same time instead of having 2 meetings? We could do it before or whatever. What's your suggestion?
Do it before or do it after. Do it while you're together at the table. No need to come together separately at a different time unless there's a big issue on the agenda that's going to take an hour or so.
Good, that was my question. Now, my other question is for my good friend here, Mr. Finance. Is there anything that we should be looking at, worried about, anything that jumps out at you that we should have concern with money being collected, not collected, or is there anything that we should know about as councilors here? In the financial, with this report that you just gave us.
Yeah, no, we're following the budget fairly well. We're a little bit better than budget right now, but I hate to say how much, only because I know March and with the auditors there's a few big entries that can kind of swing things by, large amounts, 6 figures, but.
Yeah, you just heard.
We're
okay.
If you look at my report there,
Yeah.
the number I focus in on is that surplus before the capital, because that's our true operating part. We're better than budget by about 100,000 to date. We'll receive a little bit of money's not been received, which we will receive, and so we should be, okay as far as budget goes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you hear the presentation that was just given and some threats we're just giving about people not paying their taxes, that policy is in place that we have now for 2 years.
2 years.
With people in the rears and not paying their taxes.
Yep.
And that means that if the taxes are not paid, the property comes up for tax sale. Is that how it works?
That's our policy, yes.
Is there still a 14% interest rate? Is that per month, per year? How does that work?
That's an annual percentage, yes.
So if I was paying taxes for, let's just say, $3,500 at 14%.
$350, $500-ish.
Yeah, okay. So for $1,100, somebody could lose their home for 2 years? That's all I'm not asking you to say that, but I mean, that's basically what it would be. The
They
threats.
would have a choice to pay their taxes in full at that point.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything else for the, go ahead, Counselor.
Maybe to Jerry, but I'll pass it through Jerry to Dave. Dave, how's and I was outside when they carried on most of the conversation with you, how is the budget looking for salt and plowing? How we doing?
You took too long.
Well, we're about a month behind our reporting for budget.
Yeah. To the end of February, I looked at it, we were around 35,000 higher than budgeted.
And we did what, 75? What did we do? 100?
Budget right around 100.
But it's like I saw in the papers, we average it out over 5 years, so next year we might have a good year or 2 years.
Well, we don't generally keep it the same because
it doesn't.
It's like throwing a dart.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think we had one bad year when I was there, but we had 2 good ones, so yeah, balances up. Okay.
Good. Anything else for finance? Thank you, Jerry. All righty, business. Taxi bylaw. This is for information more than anything. Go to the first reading.
Yes, Your Worship, this is exactly that. It's for information. It'll come up at the April council meeting for first reading. The taxi bylaw we identified here a little while ago was out of date as a result of the references to the Taxi Commission, the Taxi Association, and so on. So this was reviewed by the bylaw committee and the solicitor and would be going forward for first reading.
Good, Councillor Langell?
Thank you. Now, is this a new bylaw, or have we made changes to the existing bylaw? And if we've made changes, is there any way we can see what those changes are?
Go ahead, CAO. I was looking for it myself. You're on. Oh, Councillor.
Go ahead, let Jeff go.
It is an existing bylaw that has been amended. So I had what I call a marked up version with all of the changes in it, but it was a bit of a mess. So I gave you this version here, but I can circulate the marked up version so you can see exactly what the changes were. Absolutely, yeah.
Good. Councillor Mooney?
This is for the CAO and then probably the solicitor as well, talking about taxis. I know they had a presentation here several months ago where 2 or 3 different competing taxi companies had a concern about the taxi rates. And one said they were fine with the existing rates, and the other one said they'd like to have a $1 increase. Is that in the existing bylaw? Is that in the new one coming up? Or I'm going to ask Greg a question. I'll ask Greg a question. If it isn't, can the town of Yarmouth set a taxi rate? A taxi shall not charge less than, say, I don't know what the rate was that they're looking for. I think it was $6. Can they charge not a rate less than $6, but not a rate more than $7?
Okay,
Do they have to have a set? Do they have to have a set rate? Is it?
First, can you answer that? Oh, okay. Get your light on there.
I believe that is permitted, but I haven't reviewed the, oh, sorry, yeah. I believe it's permitted, but I'd have to review the Municipal Government Act to determine precisely, but I think it is, yeah. You can set a minimum and a maximum.
Is the rate in there, CAO, for this bylaw?
The rate is actually in the bylaw.
Okay.
It's in the schedule at the end. 12 midnight to 6 a.m., 7:50. 6 a.m. to 12 midnight, 6:50.
Go ahead, CAO.
So normally in the past, when the taxi rates have been amended, it's been done on the advice of the advisory committee. But since we haven't been able to constitute a meeting of the advisory committee, because the way it was set up in the bylaw was that there were representatives of an association that no longer exists. So we changed the bylaw now to have it to be license holders, either taxi or limousine license holders or taxi or limousine drivers on the committee, as opposed to representatives of an association. Then we can call a meeting, they can hash it out there around the rates and make recommendation to council. And there is a provision in the new bylaw that requires that they not be sort of from one operator, that they be representative of the many companies.
Good.
Okay, any more questions on that? Town Hall Cleaning Services tender results, CAO. You're on.
Thank you, Worship. There was a memo in your package from the town engineer. Tenders were invited from 3 local contractors for providing cleaning services for the town hall. 2 responses were received with results outlined in the engineer's report. After reviewing the tenders, it is recommended the contract be awarded to the lowest tenderer, Smith Brothers Clean and Shine, in the amount of $2,080 per month plus HST. That's for your consideration. $2,080 plus HST per month. This building.
Just this building.
Yes.
Councillor Langell.
Who is the current,
Contract is currently with Buff Zone.
so Buff Zone is the current contractor?
Yes, and they did bid.
And they did bid on this, okay. And the term of the contract?
3 years.
It'll be a 3-year contract.
Councillor Dawes.
Thank you, Your Worship. Have we used Smith Brothers before? Do we have experience with both of them?
We have used Smith Brothers. They're
Okay, all right. So you are now looking for council to say, go for it, take the lowest tender? All right, well, go for it, take the lowest tender. You need a motion, I'll make that motion.
Councillor McIsaac? Okay, you want to second that? Okay, moved by Councillor Doss, second by Councillor McIsaac to take the bid from Smith Brothers for a contract of 3 years. Oh, yeah, well, they used to do the, I think, the RCMP.
There's a probationary period in there, I take it? No?
It's a 3-year contract.
Go ahead, CAO.
No, there is no probationary period. It's a 3-year contract, but they would have to meet our requirements, and if they didn't, then town engineer, as he has over the last number of years, deals with the contractor on any issues we have.
Good. Question?
Okay, question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Contract? One nay. Motion carried. Wayfinding sign design, CAO.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you. The Waterfront Development Corporation has been working on a project to develop a wayfinding signage for the town of Yarmouth, and there are some examples that have been included in your package, as well as proposed locations for these signs. So they recently presented to the Waterfront Corporation what they had come up with, and they've met with the town engineer, the traffic authority, to talk about the concepts. And I understand that the signs that are two-part, that deal with things like museums and galleries and so on, that design is being reconsidered somewhat in order to put in a single sign, I believe, Dave, on the pole. But the front page of your package shows the downtown signs that are being proposed, and they've chosen to stay with the coloring and the graphics that were part of the Yarmouth 250th celebrations. And so what they were looking for before they go out to tender on these to get the pricing was the endorsement from council, at least the acceptance of council that this theme and this presentation of wayfinding signage meets with your approval.
Councillor Landrieu?
I love the signage. I do have a concern, though, school teacher speaking here, with the sign, I think it would be slide 2, number 2. It's the one that has the light coloring with the white letters. And I know in the sake of graphic designers live in their own little world, having a son as one of them. Council should be aware that we do have about 4 to 5% of the population colorblind in the green spectrum. And to them, that would appear as gray. They wouldn't be able to see the letters, and it's a very common learning disability we have. It's the old problem with the old green boards with teachers who had never cleaned them. And it may be something I hate to bring it up, but we may want to darken that a little bit, because a certain percentage of a small percentage and they don't even know it, are colorblind in that spectrum. And so what they see there in that light kind of, I don't know what color it is, kind of a very light green, they see that as a color of gray. They see it as a gray in their eye, and the light color would appear as white, and it kind of blends, and they just can't see. And we've seen that quite common. That's why schools have moved to the whiteboards away from those colors. So I just want to make that comment, if I may.
Before you turn your light off, the ones on the left here, the dark ones?
Perfect.
They're good?
They're perfect.
Because I'm just wondering why they aren't all like that.
Well, yeah,
They should all be the same.
Maybe for a different formula, I have no idea. Maybe David can comment, but I would prefer to see them darker, because just my thought, because it's one or the other. If that's the case, I definitely will.
Yeah, I'm seeing them in color now. I was in black and white.
Yeah, just an observation.
Yeah, we'll provide that feedback for sure, because it's, go ahead, Councillor McIsaac.
Yeah, this was brought up at the Waterfront Development, and this has to meet council's approval, and they want to act quick on this so they can be in time to get these signs up in place where they should be placed before the ship comes in. So If nobody has any problem with the signage, I move we accept the drawings from the downtown, for the downtown wayfinding.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Frank, did you want to speak to that? I got a question too. I don't see anything that says where the ferry is.
I just became aware of the wayfinding signs today, but I thought I'd bring it up. There could be some opportunities to work together because we were looking at signs for the Clements Avenue project. So it doesn't make much sense to make different signs. So I guess maybe I can work with the CAO to make sure that we kind of make them look the same, even though we're looking more into the active transportation mode, but a lot of similar stuff. So I just thought that if we could tender those signs that we were thinking of for the trail through Clements Avenue to Stars at the same time that this goes, and we can save some time and money.
Your Worship,
Yep, go ahead.
you just made a good point, and I didn't see it either, now that you mentioned it, about the ferry, and perhaps our CEO will take a note of that, and perhaps we can put that in, or, you're on that board, aren't you? Who's on that board?
You.
No, I'm not, there's a wayfinding board.
Wayfinding.
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
So
I have attended a
perhaps
couple
we could,
meetings.
we could mention it to who's ever on that board. And Nellie Smith's the one that gave the present,
yes.
Natalie?
Councillor Dawes is on the board.
Yeah, they gave the presentation, and perhaps through Councillor Doss and Madeline, we'll mention it, that it should be there.
And with the concern from
Go ahead.
And I support the motion, but maybe with the concerns that Councillor Langell had as well. And they can revisit and have a look at that. But I like, the signs look really nice. And I'd like to see, you notice, you always have comments when you go to other communities about consistency. So maybe even if they darken it up, when you go to PEI, they look all the same. So maybe a consistency would be good. But like Councillor McIsaac said, there's probably another reason, or Councillor Langell said there's another reason why they lightened one up. But overall, I think it looked very good, and I like the color scheme with the 250th in there. It looks pretty good.
Good, okay, so we have a motion the motion is to approve these with the concerns of council, which are the ferry signs and the darkening them, and that the CAO will. I don't know that needs to go in the motion, but you'll talk to Frank anyway. Okay, Councillor Dawes?
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a quick question for Mr. Grant. Frank, do you want, I'll let you know when the next meeting is? For the signage? Yeah. All right. All right, good. Thank you.
Moved and seconded. Any more discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Animal Protection Act. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Ken.
Yeah, and it's not here, but since we're on the same topic, and I don't know if we need a motion, but is somebody going to be contacting Department of Highway Transportation regarding the ferry signs that are all taped up, boarded up, hammered up, covered up, leading into Yarmouth? Because if you know, when the ferry disappeared, they covered up all those signs, like through Port Maitland, on the old highway, the new highway, even the one up here in the airport, they've covered them up. Are we going to be mentioning that to somebody, just as a thought? Because that's something that should be done, and that's Department of Transportation Infrastructure, I believe, or Infrastructure Renewal, I don't know which it is, but there should be a formal request made to them to would they please put the appropriate ferry signage in there, because it is covered up.
Can you make that a motion? I'll make a motion, yeah. I'll second that.
Does that be directed to contact Department of Transportation Infrastructure to make sure that the ferry signs are ready?
What are you thinking? Go ahead.
No, I was just thinking that within the town, that's Mr. Ernst's jurisdiction in terms of putting up signs, so it's no problem to address that. Outside of the town, it is the Department of Transportation Infrastructure Renewal, and so a letter would be appropriate. Yeah.
Good. You moved? Did you second? Okay, moved and seconded. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Animal Protection CAO.
No, I want
sorry.
to hear what, I want
Sorry
to,
about
excuse,
that.
no, that's perfectly all right. I was going to ask the CAO, and he's going to answer it, I know he is, because I had some,
a
no,
much better
I know.
way of doing
I've had
business.
conversation with him before on this, and this could cost the town a chunk of change. It's my belief that it could. So what is the remedy here? Do we have a in, out, or how should we proceed with this?
CAO.
My question's for you.
Yeah, I think we should just be aware that right now we do not have a role with regard to the Animal Protection Act. That is an area that the province has worked with the SPCA provincially to deal with animal protection. Now, we certainly deal with animal control under the Municipal Government Act, and we have responsibilities and costs there. What concerned me about this was two things, is that in the release of the draft regulations, municipalities were mentioned, and of course now you see that it's come through the municipal administrators requesting feedback. So it seems to me that that somebody is attempting to draw us into a role with the Animal Protection Act, and I think that we ought to be clear to the province that well, I shouldn't say that. What I should say to you is that you need to understand that if you agree with that progression of taking on responsibility for the Animal Protection Act, then there will be a cost associated with it. And I have not seen anything that suggests the province is or is not willing to give municipalities consideration for that, but I'm always concerned when we take on provision of a service and somebody else is paying for it, why they are not simply doing it themselves. And sometimes the answer is because they eventually expect to get out of paying for it.
That's right. Do you, the administrators, you say they want some feedback? Do you know if any of your colleagues or have you got together or spoke to any of your colleagues on this?
I've exchanged emails with some of my colleagues on this issue. When I provided a response to this email that you see in your package from the administrators, it came through a listserv, and my response was much in line with what I've just shared with you, is that it appears to be a beginning of a download, a beginning of an additional cost, and at least a download of responsibility, if not responsibility and cost.
When I read it, that's why I called you, because I had some concern, because if you read between the lines, and there's always a between the lines, that it could be like a lot of other projects that the province in their wisdom has passed on. They hand you a carrot, but there's only one carrot, and you have to buy the rest of the bag, whether you want it or not. So so we have to be very minded on this, and I mean, if we don't have to, we shouldn't.
Well, it's a serious issue. I mean, the issues that have driven this change to the regulations are pretty clear in the email. The tethering
That's
issue,
correct.
this one, and so
Yep.
on.
Yep.
Serious issue. We have no particular expertise in that.
No.
So it is an issue they're dealing through provincial regulations. They have a relationship and a contract with the provincial SPCA. There's not necessarily
No.
any particular reason why we
Where-
would be brought into this.
Okay, where does that put us in the negotiations where we are now with SPCA on the lines of dog
nothing
control
to
and
do
care? It's a different kettle of fish, is it?
Has nothing to do with it.
Okay.
And the other thing that you would probably recall is that the province had committed, as a principle of dealing with municipalities, to give a year's notice on any change in
That's correct,
regulations
yep.
that would impact on
Yep.
municipalities
Yep.
financially. And so
Okay.
this is coming with fairly short feedback opportunity and with no indication in terms of financial. So they might argue, well, we're going to pay for it. But certainly as I said, we have no expertise in this area, and what the true costs are, we don't know.
So we should, or you should keep an eye, make sure that things go out the
Well,
right way,
I
hopefully.
think that council should, if you are concerned, pass a motion to provide feedback through the UNSM and directly to the minister. And I will obviously share my concerns through the opportunity I've been given, but I don't want to be out of step with where council is on this either. And so if I had an indication of your concern or your position, then I could reinforce that.
I will wait to hear from my colleagues and see what they say around the table. Thank you.
Councilor Landrieu?
Well, the only thing I had was that the links, none of the links work, which bothered me a bit, so I have no idea what we're talking about. And when I did go into the government website, of course, it's buried way inside there, so it might be a Macintosh, Apple issue. I've got no idea, but if there's some way I could get a PDF of that, I'd like to see what it's all about. And I'll be honest, I just looked at it a few minutes ago. Didn't think much until we get into the discussion of it, but I would be curious as to what before I would make any decision. But I agree with the CIO. Let's just go gently and carry a big stick. Carry a big stick.
Councilor Dawes?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I also, I clicked on the link here that Janice Wenzel made reference to in her email, where draft regulations could be found, and it keeps coming up, server error, resource cannot be found. So I couldn't access the information, couldn't inform myself. I tried the long way, but.
Okay.
Now, you can say it works for you?
It did work for me. I just printed off the email, and I clicked it on the actual email, so it may be in the conversion to a PDF that somehow messed it up.
Ah, all right.
You think that over pasted in still?
No, it doesn't use for me.
HTML on the end still.
So is there a motion on the floor right now? You're looking for, are you looking for a motion for us to, or just want to get more information? Go ahead, CAO.
Your Worship, I'm just suggesting that you consider providing some feedback, because in the absence of any comment, obviously at this point the regulation has been drafted. Municipalities have been mentioned as a partner in this, and I'm, I think you ought to be considering what might be handed to you here. If you can table it if you wish, deal with it at the spring UNSM workshop, wait for more information. All those options are available to you. I just want to make sure you are aware that there's something happening out there that may affect you.
It says feedback by March 31st.
That's what I received, yes.
Councilor Landrieu, go ahead.
My, looking at that, considering that some of us haven't really looked, or myself, I haven't really looked at it, my question is, they want feedback. Do we know, it obviously isn't going to go through the political legislature anytime soon, I don't believe. We do have the minister here, well, one minister here anyway. Personally, I'd like to make a motion that we simply refer this to the next meeting of the Committee of the Whole. That'll give us some time to react to it, and further that we respond that we would like to have an additional time period to examine it in more detail, to provide a more proper response. I think we wrote a letter to the department as part of our response. We just need a little bit more time to consider it, and give us a chance to talk to our colleagues as well, because we haven't had a chance to really look at it. It's typical government. You get a bloody thing and you get 3 days to respond to it. It's crazy.
Okay, Councilor Dawes.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have to, I'm in agreement with you, and when I kept trying and kept trying and kept trying to get in and kept getting pushed back out again, or not even allowed in, I thought, we've only got less than a week to inform ourselves and then give feedback. Can we ask for an extension? And that's the question. Can we ask for an extension? Mr. CAO, is that,
Of course we
is that possible?
CAO?
You can ask for an extension. There's nothing
Nothing
saying
they-
you'll get it, but you can ask for it, and you can always provide late feedback, because as the councillor said, this isn't going to happen in
that's
a
right.
millisecond, so even late feedback is worth submitting.
All right. All right. I was just concerned, if they say the doors close at March 31st, are the doors closing on March 31st?
Okay, so any more discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Public Technology Advisory Committee Policy, CAO. Go ahead.
Your worship, it was requested at I think it was at the January meeting, that we put the Public Technology Advisory Committee back in place, and so in order to do so, policy is required. These are simply the provisions that were previously in our Citizens Advisory Committee policy, and suggesting that we put them back in.
To make a motion that we recommend to council at the next council meeting the Article 12 provisions regarding the Information Technology Committee as presented by the CAO be adopted.
Moved and seconded. Got that, Linda? Good. Any discussion? Councillor Dawes?
Thank you, Your Worship. Would you or someone please remind me why this was stricken from, right from the very beginning? I think it was our very first council meeting, or our very first committee of the whole meeting. A number of committees were just stricken, and everyone, well, we followed our experienced colleagues' suggestions, and we voted to wipe a whole number of committees out, and then now it's come back again. So I'm just asking, would you remind me why this was removed in the first place?
Councillor Landro?
The whole intention of the Information Technology Advisory Committee was regarding a variety of things such as internet use, the webcams, a whole variety of things that we looked in this town that we had in place. The committee initially started quite well, but towards the last, and the CEO can jump in if he wishes at this point, in the last year and a half, Councillor, it perhaps wasn't meeting as regular as it should, and it kind of fell into, it just it didn't function as well. So consequently, when this council got elected, it was kind of felt, well, maybe we'll just pick up the slack with other areas, and the Waterfront Development Corporation was getting involved with the Wi-Fi project and some of that as well. Since that time, there has been some things that are coming on the horizon. There is some new technologies there. We do have a very active group of young people in the community. I know coming up in April, there's going to be a meeting of these little techies meet at Rudders. We have a nice talent base of people in the community who would maybe give us some enlightenment. I'm not saying we meet every month, but I'm suggesting even 2 or 3 times a year, just to give feedback to our council as to some concerns they may have with regard to technology. So that was the reason, Councillor.
Good. So there's a motion on the floor. Remind me what the motion is again.
You accept the recommendation CAO regarding
Okay, Article 12. Okay, good. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Candy Cane Lane, CAO.
Your worship, it was requested that staff price out the cost of having, I think it was LED lit candy canes to reinstate Candy Cane Lane, and so it was passed on to our Operational Services Department, and there is a brief memo there from the engineer outlining a budget, I guess, for 35 poles in the downtown, plus 2 for spares. That's between Parade Street and Forest Street. That's for your consideration.
Councillor Landro?
Thank you, Worship. I think I'm surprised we got off as cheap as we did, to be perfectly honest. I think this is an incredible project, and it's something I'd love to see us look at in the budget. I know it's a fair chunk of change, there's no question here, but Yarmouth traditionally, for a large number of years, was well known for its Candy Cane Lane going down both sides of Main Street. We have been using that moniker. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas, the song, as a branding during our Christmas season. It would be so nice to put these back, so I'm not sure. I'd like to make a motion that this, or do we refer it to budget? Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that this be referred to staff for budget considerations.
Moved and seconded. Council, I've got a question too. Go ahead. As in, let's make it bigger, but go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. A great idea, but do we know what these candy canes look like? How large are they? I'm going to, just one question at a time.
Yes, we do. I'd like to leave you a picture
Are they sort of what they used to be? No, I mean, it's not
2 stories
big, right?
high and all that, no?
Not that big. They'll fit on the poles on, decorative poles on Main Street, so. A little over a meter. Yeah, so I was gonna say it's 3 feet or so. About a meter and a bit.
Great, great, great. Now, the original intent was to do the entire Main Street, especially to include Main Street South. Otherwise, everyone's going to hear about this. Now, this here is for 35 poles just between Parade and Forest Street. If we did every other pole, how much further down Main Street would that go? How many more people could we keep happy? That's my question.
Well, we keep saying we want to go fountain to fountain.
Yeah.
Now's the time to do it, but anyway, go ahead.
In the absence of some specific direction as to how far you want to go, I assume in the downtown core, but I can price it out wherever you want. Offhand, I can't give you how many poles that would cover from Argyle to Vancouver Street. I don't know how many poles are there.
Okay. Must be Councillor McIsaac, sorry.
Every second pole, would it go, it should go twice as far, should it not?
Well, not necessarily, depends on how far the poles are spaced outside the core, so.
Okay, Councillor McIsaac?
Thank you, Your Worship. Dave, how many companies responded to this, to your request?
Just price through one company at this point in time for budget purposes.
Okay, is there any other companies that sell these?
I'd have to check that out, see who else may handle it.
Yeah, okay, because, yeah, okay, because just to, and we're referring this to budget, but it could be less than $500 apiece. Well, if there's other companies out there, we don't know that till we ask, right? Okay, so the question is not to jump on this too quick and say, pass it, bang, goodbye, and that's it. Another thing we also have to look at is, do we have to do it all in 1 year? You know, I mean, there's nothing says we have to. And we had some angry people here today. I don't think everybody from South End or Milton's going to run down here and protest and threaten not to vote for us or whatever, and quote something from the Egyptians or whatever it was. So perhaps we ought to see how many more prices we can get on this before we make any decision to accept it. And I'm okay with it referring it to budget as long as we get some more pricing. And if we're going to do it, I don't think we have to do the whole town. Pay attention, I'm going to ask questions in a minute. I don't think we have to do the whole of Yarmouth in 1 year. I mean, let's be minded of where we are budget-wise. Christmas is still going to come and go, whether the candy canes are hanging all up and down Main Street. So I would say that we ought to be cognizant on spending a lot in 1 year just to dress it up. The park was a 3 or 4 year project. It's ongoing. So if we do that and see if we can get some better pricing, I'd be comfortable with that instead of spend it all in one shot. That's just my thought.
Good.
We don't rant no more, just my thought.
I'm so proud of you. I could just come right across the table and give you a hug, but let's stop at that. Councillor Mooney.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor McIsaac. I agree with you 100%. And anybody that's going to, and I'm not going this year, but you go to FCM, if you go through the trade show, I think there's LeBlanc Illuminations in Montreal. Dave, there's a whack of companies that... Decrolite, there's a whack of companies that provide decorative lighting, and I think Councillor McIsaac hit it right on the head. People have seen the nice job that we've done in Frost Park, and if you tell the people this is what our plan, we're going to cover so many feet this year, or you know, so many blocks, and then next year we're looking to, do, you know, go a little farther south or a little farther north. I think people can accept that, and I think to get the true meaning back again, Candy Cane Lane started in the downtown, then work south, and then work north. But if people see that you have a true plan, I have no problem bringing this to, bringing it forward to budget, because I think it's a good idea. If we can spend $20,000 on music, we can get some candy canes, right, Dan? Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
To the CEO, has the engineer ever attended any of these shows, FCM shows, or UNSM? FCM is the one to go, because that's pretty much the biggest, and they have a lot of things there. And if he doesn't, if he's comfortable going, perhaps he should take the time, if he wishes, and perhaps if you can get him to go, or if he's able to go, it would be a good experience and a good exercise. I don't know if he's ever been before, so that's my question to you and to Dave.
Yes.
Yeah.
The only thing that's of interest to me really is the trade show.
Well, that's good.
We took him to Quebec City, and he came back with too long a list of things he wanted.
Costs us too much. Costs us.
Yeah.
No.
FCM's there if you want to go. In the meantime, are you going? Sandy's going, you're going? Two girls are going. I would probably grab some of that stuff while you're there, if you think of it. I'm not going, I'd grab it. Okay, so, Councillor Langell, you're on.
Thank you, Your Worship. To answer some of the questions Councillor Dawes brought up, what you're seeing before you is 37 basic candy canes that we're looking at the period from Forest Street to Grand Street. If you're putting that on one side of the street, that is one side of the street, or 17 on one side and 17 on the other side. It's not a lot of. There's not a lot of candy canes. So you're looking at basically looking at one. If you want to get an impact, you have to do that. The original. What's that vent again? Is that moisture in the building? That's a moisture. Yeah. The original discussion, when the Communities in Bloom recommended this to Council, the original discussion was a phasal approach. I'm agreeing with a lot of people. I'd love to see us go oomph as much as we can. And I agree with Councillor McIsaac's point that he was making. There are other prices out there, and with fairness to staff, they did a quick rudimentary look at what's going on. While we were looking, I was just doing some Googling, and you can get them from anywhere from $300 to $400 to $500, depending upon what you want. Personally, what I'd really recommend is there is a community out in Vancouver, out in BC, I'm not sure, I'll have to dig up the name for the CAO, who has this concept there, and I'd be curious what they're using, because there's so many variables we've got to look at. When we looked originally at the Frost Park lighting, we miscalculated the salt, we miscalculated the air, that sort of thing, and we ended up having to replace a fair chunk of the lights in the third year. So we don't want that to happen again, so we want to be very cognizant of that. The original thought was to do an intact and Middletown oomph, but then it would be nice to do the Milton corner and the Argyle corner as well, which you'd basically be looking at maybe 5 or 6 in each corner area, and that would be a nice presence for this year, and then build upon that for the following year. If you wanted to properly light it, I'm going back to the 250th days, you're looking at close to 100 to 120 lights to actually give you the impact from one end to the other end, roughly, because that was the number of banners that we actually put up, and they weren't on every pole, they were on every second pole. You were looking at a fair chunk there as well. So, I mean, this could easily balloon if you wanted to go in that direction to almost double the cost that you have there, but I think for this one particular year, my view is go with the recommendation of doing that original oomph, see how it goes, because we're not sure how these lights are going to work, and there's so many variables we don't know, and I think if it's referred to the budget, let the staff look at it. see what's going on, and then at least David has a number to work with. He may not have enough money. We may have too much money. Don't know. We don't know what we're getting into here. There's some other variables that are there. So that was just I don't know if that answered your question, Councillor Dawes, but the original thought was to do the oomph in the center as part of the frost lighting, and then ideally it would be nice to have 2 clusters. I would personally love to see us have 12 more lights bought for Milton and for Yarmouth South, and that would give the clustering on the corners, similar to, because it kind of brings it together more.
Good, thank you. Councillor Dennis, your light's on.
Yeah, I was wondering on well, you said the length, but how wide are they? And are they metal or are they plastic?
I think they're a metal frame with LED letters strung around it.
Okay, is there anything else on them to make them decorative?
Oh, those ugly metal things. So they don't look like candy canes at all.
I can't tell from the photo, but I can find out more details.
Yeah, some of them have the sparkle going around them that you don't see the lights until they're lit, so that they're decorative in the daytime. So are they on posts coming off of the pole?
They're on a bracket coming off the pole.
Okay. All right. Yep. Thank you.
Do you know what they look like? Like, are they red and white? Yeah. Okay. All right. Councillor Dawes.
Thank you, Your Worship. First to Councillor Langell. Yes, it is a long street. Doing in clusters or spreading them out, it's an answer will be found. There's an answer to every problem. It's just the easiest thing in the world is to keep everyone in town happy at the same time. There are a number of manufacturers out there, as we're all aware. I know I spoke with a trunk full of them when I was at the FCM out in Vancouver last year, and I came back armed with lots of information, and I asked every one of them how salt resistant they were, and they are. They have them. Some of them are in San Francisco. Some of them have their lights in Vancouver. So yeah, they are aware of that.
Anything else? Question is to refer to budget. Go ahead.
Would it be agreeable to the seconder if we add 12 more lights to it to handle the cluster in Yarmouth South and the cluster in Milton? So we'd be looking at a purchase of 50 lights. I think that would be a round number. Is that agreeable to the seconder? I'd like to make that amendment, Your Worship, to it.
Okay. Good. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Councillor.
But when we refer this to budget, we are going to get more pricing, is that correct?
CAO.
Competitive quotes once I know we have a budget.
Okay.
Okay, for it, I mean,
Okay, great.
I know that the
Yeah.
$500 probably.
It's a ballpark figure. Okay.
It's less, fine.
Okay, great, thank you. That was my concern. Thank you, Your Worship.
Your Worship, this is just simply to put the allocation in the budget.
Yeah.
The procurement process would be a totally
Yeah.
separate process where quotes would be, or proposals would be accepted.
Okay.
Given there are a number of companies out there, and they provide they might provide different solutions to put a candy cane on a pole. So maybe a request for proposals where you would actually look at the presentation. The presentation means as much as the price on this thing, right? So you do a request for proposals, ask for colored photos, examples, whatever, and then council can choose not only the best price, but you can get the look that you're looking for. Well, council ultimately will approve the procurement, and so the recommendation, we'd go through the normal process, perhaps an RFP, staff would receive them, review them, make a recommendation, but you would receive, and perhaps we could even give you the ability to see ahead of time the presentation of how these would look.
Good? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Snow plowing, Main Street, CAO. ahead.
Thank you, Worship. A motion of council prior had asked about snow plowing on Main Street, and there is a memo from the town engineer to myself with regard to this, and so that is there for your consideration.
Councilor Langell?
I read the report and that we received. I was, in fact, I was reading it this morning as they were clearing the snow in front of the schools, and they haven't used the V-shaped plow in the schools for quite some time. They use the snow blower thingy, which is quite impressive to go through there, and that's what they do. So therefore, and I believe the snowblower thingy, whatever it's called, has a little bit of a wider path than what is used. Now that, of course, would be an issue because you'd be moving it. I really believe that we should be doing an original, at least a swath. The day walking, Your Worship, not walking, but driving down along Main Street this morning, it was appalling, the condition of Main Street. I mean, in front of one business establishment, there's a mountain of snow that has to be at least, I don't know, Councillor, what do you say, that's about 8 feet that somebody has plowed. We have another business in the center part of town who's blocked the sidewalk by clearing their yard as well. And but I really think whatever we can do to do that original clearance, if nothing else, just to accommodate the merchants going to their businesses in the morning so that they can at least get through the path. It takes approximately, and believe me, I've lived across from the school all my life, well, since 1986, so it's going on 30 years, and I've watched the clearance over the time. It takes no more than 20 minutes to clear around the school. That's the sidewalks. You know, I usually see them, and they do it quite quickly in the morning. They're very efficient. Now, that is not the same space as the Main Street. But I really believe after the schools are cleared, we really, again, this is all part of this business-friendly thing that I'm on, and I really, considering the tax base, considering what they do, I have a real issue with why we just cannot plow initially just a path along Main Street from whatever, fountain to fountain, if we could, so that it is our Main Street. It right now, if you walk along Main Street, it is a nightmare, especially in around parts of Yarmouth South. I couldn't believe it. Now, there's one sidewalk that is clear that has been plowed kinda down, and it was obviously the snow blower that was using it, because you can see how they cut through. Yeah, they've done part of it, but I mean, I look at it, we do the residential streets and we do a lovely job, and our staff does work very hard, and I commend them for that, but I really would love to see us do whatever is necessary to get our Main Street cleared, just an initial swath through for the merchants in the morning and for the people in the morning so they can walk. This morning, for example, I do know that a lot of people had to walk to work this morning because they could not get their cars out of the driveway. And they're on the road, and et cetera, et cetera. And I don't know, I wish we could do something. I don't know what the CAO's thoughts are on this. I'm reading this, I guess, I'm kind of reading this as not a good idea to plow the Main Street, but I really think we should try to make it a good idea.
Do you want to speak to that, David?
Normally we use a beat plow to plow all sidewalks in town. We use the snow blower when it's too much snow to plow, and that's what we've been using today. In the case of the school there, that sidewalk is, you can't plow that back. You have to blow that snow because there's a fence right there. That's the reason why that's, we use a snow blower there as well. We use it when we're removing snow from areas and blowing it into a truck, because that's the easiest way of doing it. The reason we use a beat plow is because of the speed. I mean, you're not fooling around. You just go and split the snow and keep going. You don't have to back and jig around and frig with it. It's normally used on a sidewalk that's 4 to 5 feet wide, whereas downtown is up to 12 feet wide in places. So, in order to plow and keep going, I mean, you don't want to be fooling around clearing up the whole width of 12 feet of sidewalk. It's not practical.
My point, David, is not so much the idea of giving them the same level. I'm thinking of even that initial swath, that initial cut through, and then if they want to have their private contractor come and do their thing, that's wonderful. I do know the response that I've received from businesses downtown when we did the experiment was, wow, they were so impressed. There was a lot of very positive response that we did it. So the intention is just to clear an initial path, and then if there's no reason why they can't get their own contractor to clear out and to widen it and do whatever they do. We're just going to do a service in clearing a path all along the main street so that people could walk to work, and if they got to step over their snowbank to get in their business, that's their prerogative. Still get their private contractor, do their thing, but we just have that nice, the street's got a clearance of some kind, because right now we have parts of Main Street that are blocked. So you people, as I was come here this afternoon, I'm watching people walking down the street, going out on the road, then going back on the street because a property owner hasn't cleared their walk as they're supposed to clear it, and it's an issue. But this way, if we did one, just go up and back and do it, and that would be just wonderful, and I think it would really help the merchants out.
Yes, but what about the rest of the streets in town? People walk, or sidewalks in town, they do walk to work on those sidewalks as well. It's not just downtown Main Street that should be cleared.
But don't you think it would be almost like a priority, considering the tax base for that whole Main Street, considering the tax base that we're looking at there, you know, that's what I'm looking at. I mean, yeah, I agree. I mean, we have all the other side streets that are being done, but I mean, we're trying to encourage our business community as much as we can to do whatever we can to keep them going. And that's, to me, it's a slight little thing to do. I may be totally wet on this one, but I think it's just a nice little action for us to do. I think it's a good, efficient use of taxpayers' money. They pay enough business taxes to do it. I mean, I would gladly, not that I have a sidewalk in front of my house, I wouldn't think twice about letting that. And what's the unfortunate part is that we are plowing businesses in town. We are plowing from Milton right up to Grand, and we are plowing some other business areas in town, but we're stopping in the main downtown core.
We're not giving a priority to those areas. As we go, we do those areas.
Not along, we're not doing Main Street though, from Forest to Grand. That's the area I'm looking at. That's what I'm trying to get that. Can we do that? Because we do the other areas.
Well, I said we could, but I mean, they may not be happy with the use of
I think, personally, I think they were so thrilled, the ones I talked to, that we did that little path. They were happy. I mean, anything is a help, you know, just a thought.
Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Dave, I read your letter, and how many sidewalk plows go out? Two. Are they both V plows? Could one, well, they both have the plows hooked up on them anyway, or they don't, or is there just one that has the blower? Is there only one blower plow you have?
No, we have two.
You have two?
Right, today, for example, both of them are blowing all the sidewalks.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Is it possible for one to come down and do the sidewalks, the blower plow, instead of the V plow? First off, when you have to do sidewalks to Forest Street, then go back and get the V plows? I'm only asking the question, is that possible to do that, rather than use the V plows?
Yeah, but switch the attachments.
Oh, you do? Is that a long process, Dave?
Well, it takes a little bit of time, yeah. Both of them generally go at the same time, they head in opposite directions.
Okay, but is it a big deal to do that though? What are we looking at? A half-hour changeover?
Probably, or so.
Yeah, but it's not that it can't be done. It can be done, and it just, as the plow went by instead of the V-shaped one on Main Street, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about our downtown core that should have perhaps the same treatment as the other portions of the sidewalk. Would the snow blower be better than the V shape, in your opinion?
I don't know where you're gonna put the snow. You can't blow it in the street, so you gotta blow it that little 2 or 3 foot section right next to the curb.
Yeah, and that's the curb that is usually removed when the storm subsides, and they usually take the snow away. They hire equipment to come and get that, so it would fit perfect if you're going to blow it to the curb, I would suggest, seeing how they do it when they go by my place.
We don't hire that, we do that ourselves.
Well, that's even better.
That every storm, but we wait till it builds up to a certain level.
Well, it would be the same, it would be on the same thing. You're going down a straight line, so it's not going to build it up in, if not very much more than what it already is, I would think. I'm just trying to get my head around this. Yeah, okay, yeah. Is it something that could be looked at and looked into, see which one would accommodate the best way of doing it, either with the V or with the snow blower? I mean, that's not hard to figure out. You can figure that out. I mean, and with your staff, whatever's convenient. But for me, if I was a storefront owner, I'm saying if I was a storefront owner, I would much rather have it blown on the side than the V plow shoving it into my door. I see where you're coming with your letter here. It makes perfect sense. But it's not like that's the only piece of equipment we have. We have two other ones. We have another one that we could easily do this. I guess the will for this council has got to be there. I mean, we're only asking the questions. It's up to yourself, and we'll see what the CAO says and see if we can or cannot do this. I liked your letter because you went right into the detail and you explained it all really well, so thank you.
Good, Dave? Good? Wow, I got all kinds of lights. CAO?
So hate to keep this going any longer, but at the end of the day, what council wants, I believe, is that as Councillor Langelo said, that an initial plow is done so that people can walk down the sidewalk and have reasonable footing underneath. If there are buildings that are unoccupied or property owners who are not doing their job, it doesn't affect the general public, the customer, the person walking downtown having to walk over ice and snow in front of those properties. So one initial cut early in the morning, V-plow or snow blower, doesn't matter. Just do it, and if the feedback we got when we did a quick little test here a month ago was that people were happy. So if they're okay with it, and it makes the footing better to walk down Main Street, then just leave it to the operational services to get her done.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll make it a motion. I make a motion that we direct staff to look at plowing an initial cut, V-plow, snow blower, whatever, from Main Street, from the Milton to Argyle Street, both sides, early in the morning to accommodate the business community and the residents in our downtown core.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis?
I just want to say that this morning we used the snow blower in front of the store, and the only thing is it would have to, if you're going to use the snow blower, it would have to be done early because Ken had to keep stopping because people are walking on the sidewalks, and then plus the vehicles when you're blowing the snow.
No, I know you can't.
So
Use equipment on the sidewalk with businesses open.
exactly. So it would have to be done really early in the morning or with the V plow. Yeah.
We do the schools around 4.
I'll second for discussion, Your Worship.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Phone call for the question. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Council agenda policy, CAO?
Thank you, Worship. Just wanted to bring this up for discussion. We had approved this almost a year ago, this agenda policy. It was amended from its first incarnation, and the only issue we're having with it in the office is with regard to motions being submitted when agenda items are submitted. And it causes Linda a little bit of stress. And you know, the intention was to give you guys a set of, we'll say, guidelines or rules to follow, and we're having some difficulty with it. So my suggestion is either we reaffirm that that's what we want to do, or that we amend the policy to remove that, so that we aren't in a situation where, in fact, we're breaking our policy regularly.
Thank you. Councillor?
And now I'll confess I'm one of the biggest offenders. The difficulty we run into is some of the committees meet after the agenda is drawn up. For example, Communities in Bloom is notorious for that. as luck would have it, we are meeting next week, so those recommendations would come in. Some items we have in the agenda don't require a motion. They're just information or they're questions for staff. Unfortunately, some of us are a little overtasked, and I will apologize to Linda and to the CAO in my case, because I've been kind of, as Mayor Mood knows, kind of wrapped up in a little winding down of a certain organization of late, so I've been kind of occupied in other directions, so I have been a little remiss, but I think it's a good policy, but I will do everything I can to make sure we get them in on time.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Your Worship, I'm the big offender today, because most of the things on the agenda came from me and didn't come with motions, they just came with the background supporting, so I completely understand, and the question is really, I felt that perhaps because this has been happening, that maybe we were off base and should revisit. We have had some things recently. If something's coming in and it's for discussion, you've had some good discussions lately. If it's something that's just for a discussion item, if that is indicated, that's perfect. Then we're just having a conversation, and maybe a motion will come out of that at a future meeting. But anyway, I just wanted to. It wasn't intended to point a finger, Councillor, but wanted to make sure that if we are not going to do what we had written, then let's change what we wrote to reflect what we actually want to do. So, but if it's okay to leave it alone, then I appreciate your assistance.
Good. Anybody else? Election boundary review. CAR.
Thank you, Your Worship. This one, if you read it, you understand that we have a legislative requirement to do a review, and I think this is every 8 years, ahead of a municipal election. And so in the town of Yarmouth, we only have one polling area. It is the entire town, and we have a mayor system, so there's a mayor ballot and a councillor ballot. And so this time around, the Utility Review Board is putting a little more honest. The last time around, we had a public hearing, and I think nobody attended. And we had the Utility Review Board held a hearing, and I was the only attendee. And the recommendation from council to go to that hearing was that we go with 6 councillors and a mayor, elected at large. And the Utility Review Board accepted that, as there was clearly no opposition to that. This time around, they require that 2 options be studied. And remember now that this applies to all municipalities. So in areas where they have wards, it might be the number or the boundaries for the actual electoral areas. In our case, where you're all elected at large, if there need to be 2 options, it needs to be about the number of councillors. Or one of the options could be that you divide the town into electoral wards as it was one time. In any case, a study needs to be done and a process needs to be followed, and the question really for you is, would you prefer to contract out this study or to have it done within? Before I let you make motions on that, I would suggest from my perspective, I would prefer that you contract out that work.
Agreed. So moved. Second. Moved and seconded. Councillor Mooney, go ahead.
And in that process, they'll be coming back with a recommendation. I personally like 2 recommendations.
They need 2? 2 options. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
I personally like, I think you get the best representation when you do whatever number you pick for a town, if it's 5 or 6 or whatever, they come back with a recommendation. I think the ward system is out the window. I think we have such a connective community now that I think sitting at large is, I think you're representing everybody in your community, and you're not pitting one area against the other, and having an elected mayor is the way to go, right? I think the warden system is not the way to go. I think elected mayors is the way to go, but they'll have an opportunity. If we contract that out, they'll be having public hearings on that, so, okay.
Good. Councillor Mandel?
We could go for the second alternative, we'd like a military junta or something, and make it so off the wall. After day may be happening. Make the second one totally. I agree with Councillor Mooney. Jeff, do you have any idea what that would run us, dollar-wise?
I don't off the top. This hasn't been done in a number of years, and they've changed the requirements this time. So every municipality is going to be doing this, and so for somebody who's hardworking, there's going to be lots of opportunity to go around and do this kind of work. I would be surprised if $10,000 to $15,000 wasn't enough. I think that's probably in the ballpark at the most.
Is there a way that we could be kind of, I hate to use the word piggyback, but tailgating or working with other towns? Like I'm foreseeing, like obviously Shelburne will be going through this process, Digby's going through this process, Liverpool, all the towns in the area. I mean, if we could somehow work together with one common consultant, that would be a bit of a saving in some cases. I don't know if that's
I can put out a
just as a thought of what the guys are going to be doing, because that could be a saving, because you're going to deal with the same one. What the heck, because I don't think we have anyone locally that would be probably going into that. Naturally, I'd prefer that, but if we could partner up with the other units, that might be good for them, because little towns can't afford the oomph that and they're doing the same thing, no matter if you get 484 people like Annapolis or 6,800 like us.
Good. Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Your Worship. Jeff, would it be the right thing to do, probably ask the province, the Municipal Affairs Department, if there's any funding to help with the cost of doing this, since it's what they're suggesting we do, that they're mandating us to do? The minister that gave a great presentation seemed to think that there was funding for different things that we met with, so would it be a good exercise maybe just to get in touch with him and see if there's any funding for this?
I can ask the question, but this is a legislated requirement of municipalities. It's in the Act, in the Elections Act, I believe, Municipal Elections Act. So I can ask the question. There's no harm.
I mean, it's just a matter of sending a letter or whatever, phoning, whatever, I guess. Thank you.
Good. What's the question?
That we contract out the service for benefit review
Contracted
for
out.
the next municipal election.
Okay, good. Moved and seconded. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. April Fool's Trivia Challenge. CAO, this stuff ends up on here is beyond me.
Oops, I put my...
CAO?
Go. The councillor's more excited than I am. So this is a request from the library, the Adopt a Book program. Every year they have the April Fool's Trivia Challenge. They do have what they call a political round, and for the last number of years the town of Yarmouth has submitted a team, so it involves an entry fee and some money for bribes. So, Your Worship, that's for your consideration.
Yeah, it's my consideration who to pick to go.
We've already got our team. We're still sitting down there. We went last year, Phil and I and Frank. We had a great time. We actually cleaned the municipality. In fact, I was telling Ricky at the library board meeting last week here you go, Rick, you guys are toast again. Your Worship, I'd like to make a motion that we enter a team into the April, whatever it is, the April Fool's Trivia Challenge, that we, Town of Yarmouth, enter a team, and I know Councillor Mooney's kindly agreed, and we've just hijacked Mr. Grant, and if anybody else wants to join us, it's a lot of fun. And yeah, we'll definitely go for that.
Moved and seconded. Any more discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Airport funding, CAO. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I haven't provided much information on this, just a few numbers, but basically to say the Yarmouth Airport is in transitioning and adjusting, rationalizing operations in order to reduce its municipal investment in the coming years. However, at the current time, they do have a working capital shortage, and they need urgently an infusion of cash in advance on next year's funding for the airport. And there's some math shown there in the document, which shows the amount that they're looking for to carry them up until the 30th of April, 2014. Haven't done the exact math on what our share is, but regardless of that, I would recommend to you an advance of $100,000 on next year's funding to the airport in order to assist them with their working capital problem.
Need a motion. Okay. Moved by Councillor Dawes. Do I have a seconder?
Second for discussion.
Second for discussion, Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Your Worship. Jeff, the other units, are they on board with funding? I know I asked at one of our meetings and
Yes.
to see where they were.
Yes.
So they are.
I can tell you the District of Argyle approved a motion identical to that which was proposed here
Good.
Last night at a council meeting.
Good.
I don't know about the District of Yarmouth, but I would be surprised if they didn't. They
Okay.
understand the issue.
Yeah, I would be surprised if they didn't either. So, okay, great. Thank you, Your Worship, and that's my question.
Perfect, thank you. Any more questions? Questions been called, all those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Recommendations from Waterfront Development. Was this yours? Go ahead.
I'll take her.
Take her.
Okay, so there were a couple of motions from the most recent Waterfront Development Corporation minutes that the town has for consideration. One of them is a motion regarding the downtown seasonal music project. You've recently made a couple of motions regarding the downtown seasonal music. This motion simply was to pass the completed project back to the town, including equipment, and you know, that obviously that was passed by their board, so it's in keeping with the motions you've already made. The other motions, no action required by council today on that. The other one, though, is related to the duck trolling retriever statue. And you'll recall that a motion was made at a prior council meeting to refer the idea of a bronze duck trolling retriever dog statue to the Waterfront Development Board. They made a motion to send the request back to council for council's action, as it does not appear to be within the mandate of the Yarmouth Waterfront Development Corporation to take on these sorts of projects. And so the dog statue matter has been referred back. They've declined to participate.
Councillor McIsaac?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I was at that meeting, and you'll see here that the motion was moved and seconded by myself, moved by Clifford Hood and seconded by myself, Daniel McIsaac. And we thought, and I still think, that we need a lot more information about this. Now, I like Little River duck trolling dogs. I mean, I'm not saying that we shouldn't recognize them, but I don't know if we should recognize them in the town of Yarmouth or the municipality should recognize them where they're pretty much breeded out in the municipality. And they are in Argyle, basically is where they really were first breeded there, and over in Overton. So I know there's Little River duck dogs that walk in our, in the streets of Yarmouth and around Yarmouth, and there are lots of people that probably own these dogs. But for the town and the taxpayers to erect a statue, bronze statue, I think it needs a little bit more thought. And to do this on one presentation, and the ask was that we look at this, but I think we ought to give it a little bit more thought before we start erecting statues of animals, dogs or whatever, not because they're animals and dogs and they don't deserve it, but I think it's not the place. If there's going to be a place, my belief, it should be in the municipality where the dogs are breeded and sold in there. Now, I know this lady gave a presentation here, and she's willing to go give her brochures down through downtown where she, probably part of her campaign to sell her dogs, I would think, and the dog statue would be there. So I don't know. I'm not in favor of putting any bronze statue of dogs in the town of Yarmouth. I may as well get right to the point And that's why, and around the committee, they thought pretty much the same. And if it was going to go anywhere, it should probably go where it's placed put in the municipality. That's my just.
Go ahead, no, it's way up. Wait, it's way up. Go ahead. No, it's not, go ahead.
Councillor Dawes made a motion. I think it's something that we discussed. I'll second the motion for discussion, but that's to pass it back to Communities in Bloom. But Councillor McIsaac's right. We've discussed this at Communities in Bloom before about statues or other monuments, and we're in the process now, Councillor McIsaac, of talking about anything from topiaries, and that's going to be on the next committee meeting, topiaries and other forms of recognition. So maybe if we pass it back to the Communities in Bloom, looking at a larger picture like monument statues, over and above this particular request. But if we can pass that back to Communities in Bloom, and I know we've already had discussion on several monument kind of things and other things. So if we pass it back to Communities in Bloom, I don't think you have a problem as chairman. We can look at it, but there's lots of opinions around there, and I kind of feel the same way you did, but that was a request that we had, and we can look at it. Question?
Well, I was just going to say.
I seconded it, yeah.
I was just going to say, I thought the premise was that because the ship is coming and it's the Nova Scotia dog, that the statue would be placed close to the terminal, and so that was the whole premise when she came in, and she had explained everything before. Not taken away from the municipality or Argyle, but it was because she wanted to. And actually, I got people from as far away as Halifax saying, I'll come down and have my dog right on the property because it's a Nova Scotia dog and people want their pictures taken and stuff. So anyway, it is what it is. So what's the motion? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, I got one more thing to say to that. just so people that have forgot, there used to be 3 ships that sailed here.
Yeah.
And I had the pleasure of bringing 2 captains from the Carib and the Scotia Prince over to Overton to buy 2 Little River Duck dogs, which they brought back to Germany with them. So it's not like people in America are going to be known for the first time that Nova Scotia has a dog called the Nova Scotia Retriever. So I think they'll find out that soon enough when they travel through Nova Scotia and spend their vacation monies. Let's hope.
Good. What's the question? Because we don't want to. Referring it to Communities in Bloom. Okay. Okay. All those in favor? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried.
John has room like that at the fire hall.
Okay. Do we have time for additions right now? Saltscapes, we're making them. Okay. 8A. Who was going to speak to Saltscapes? Councillor Dennis? Nobody? What? Somebody needs to talk to Saltscapes.
I just have one question. Are we going to be doing 1 booth or 2 booths?
Okay.
We ordered 2, so are we doing both booths?
All right.
There's actually 3. You have the Asda booth, and there's 2 Yarmouth Town booths that are booked. So we have 2 Yarmouth Town booths.
Okay, Yazda is
And
not
Yazda
part of
has,
it.
no, Yazda is a separate booth. They bought the 3rd booth, my understanding. No, they haven't bought the 3rd booth.
They're not participating.
They're not participating.
They don't have any money.
Okay. What do you mean all that extra $43,000 or $47,000 that we gave them for extra marketing?
I had to go somewhere else.
Okay. Yeah, well, we have 2 booths.
So who has 2 booths? The
Town of Yarmouth has 2 booths. Town of Yarmouth will be running 2 booths. That was what our original motion was, yeah.
Okay.
That's what we bought.
Councillor Dennis?
And also, Gary Kent asked to work with me in the booth, so I'm just bringing that to council.
Yeah.
Right.
Gary, great.
So Gary is going to be a volunteer in the booth?
No, he was going to go as, we were supposed to have 4 people, so.
Yeah. See, I had offered, thought we discussed maybe the Bojarskis going, and I already spoke to them, so I'll withdraw my name so that the Bojarskis, so I'll make a motion that, okay, yeah, because I kind of thought we'd agreed to that last time, so it's my fault, so I'll move that Bob and Carol Bojarski, Gary Kent, and Sandy Dennis go to the Saltscape show.
Well, when you brought it up, you just brought up that 4 people were going, you didn't say who.
Yeah, we mentioned
So-
Bob and Carol, they've been going.
No, you said they went last year, but you said I'm not naming any names because I may be
No,
dead.
I don't, it's fine by me, they can go.
Well, you and Danny can go. I don't have to go.
No, I don't want to go.
Who is in charge of communities, who's in charge of Saltscapes anyway?
We're all
'Cause-
kind of just flounder around. You're the decorator in charge, and last year you did.
Well, I just decorated, yeah, but, well, who's, because it gets kind of difficult because I don't know who's doing what, and I don't know who's in charge, so am I in charge? Are you in charge?
You were, yeah. You did it last year. Remember, you did the schedule and all that.
Yeah.
So you're in charge, yeah.
Okay,
Are you good with that? You okay?
guess so, yep.
All right.
So I guess, so the Bojarskis are going for sure?
That'd be my motion unless you have somebody else in mind.
No?
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor so we're taking care of who's going. So Counselor Dennis, Gary Kent, Bob, and Carol Bojarski.
That's my
And you've already spoken to them.
Yes.
Okay? All right? We got a motion on the floor. Can I have this? Yeah. Moved and second.
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? I don't think he's making any money. I don't know.
He's not selling Vincent products.
No.
He's giving taste testing of his Vincent products.
That's a little awkward. And you're in the vote.
That's a little different.
Well, we're giving out the kippers.
IMO stuff and local ketchup?
Because he's a local,
Same thing, I suppose, yeah.
I'm removing myself.
okay. So anyway, do you have something to say on that? Like,
Anything we can? Go ahead.
Is there a question? What's the question?
question is, he wanted to give out sampling of his product at the booth. And a gift basket of his products. Is that okay or not okay? Because we give out the kippers, which is a local product as well, so I just,
Yeah, the only difference in that, I suppose, is that he's not selling any at the booth.
no.
The only difference is that he happens to be present where Phil LeBlanc hasn't been present.
It was made as a gift.
Yeah, so, but you have no policy on this at all, so you're making it up as you go along. But it is, it's a local food product, as somebody mentioned. I don't think there's any question here that I can answer for you, other than, it's a local food, and if that's your decision, then I don't see any issue with it, Greg. There's no.
No, I mean, conflict of interest refers, is that what you mean? Like, because that's for decisions that are made at council, and people have to remove themselves from the decision-making process involving conflict of interest, but that doesn't mean that somebody they're related to can assist the town and provide a product to the town. It's just the person that they're related to can't participate in that decision-making process, so there's no issue then.
Okay.
That's-
I was just
Okay,
asked
yes.
by Gary if he could go with me, because, well, I knew that, Danny and Ken were going, so I needed somebody there too, so that's why I brought it to council's attention to see if it was okay. But it doesn't have to happen, I mean,
Yeah, okay. Who's next? Counselor Mooney?
I'm not too hyped up on that. If we give and I like his product, and I like Gary, and he's doing a great job, but I think if we're going to do it for Gary, we might have to open it up for anybody else that has a product or a business in the town of Yarmouth to come up and be present at the booth. I think the real onus and the oomph on the booth is promoting the Yarmouth area. Now, Gary's a part of Yarmouth with the Yarmouth Light and with his new product, but how are we going up there and promoting somebody's personal product when they're there? Are they there promoting the Yarmouth product, or are they there promoting themselves? So I have a problem. I think the original group that went up there were promoting the town of Yarmouth and the area itself. Somebody there that's promoting their own personal product, I have a problem with it. We're putting considerable money in this, and I know there's other people there. I know Phil has donated the kippers, but you tag those. You put a logo and you put an emblem on them, and you just give them out, right? Come to Yarmouth, here's a product from Yarmouth. But to have somebody there personally promoting their product at a table, that's a touchy situation. Like, I don't mind Gary going. I don't mind Gary going. And if he wants to have a draw for a basket of his products there, I have no problem with that. But going up there and actually taste testing, doing the other thing, I don't know how that works with other municipalities or other business groups, but it's a touchy situation, especially when somebody was invited in, they said, I'd like to go, but then I'd like to participate and put my product out there and fund it on the taxpayers' money. It's hard. I can't, I like Gary to go, and I'd like Gary to represent the town of Yarmouth, but I think the other add-on, I think, detracts from that. So you can do whatever you want to do, but I don't know how that's going to work, but I'm not comfortable with it.
Well, it wasn't my decision. I'm bringing it to council to find out which way to go, and I didn't mean for everybody to quit. I'm just making, that's procedure, right, to bring it to council and ask?
That's absolutely
so that's what
right.
I'm doing.
Absolutely right.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I'll let
if
you
you
speak on
feel
that.
like Gary shouldn't be going and showing his product, then he shouldn't be going. No.
Councillor McIsaac, you're like.
Thank you. Councillor Mooney just touched on what I have a problem with. I have a problem with Gary selling this product. It's a great product. I've heard it's a great product. But what I have a concern with is that it's going to be on the taxpayer's dime, and he's going to be promoting his product on there. We're going to be paying his lodging, his mileage, his hotel bill, and the works. Now, that's fine. If he's going up without samples with his product and this and that, I would be more comfortable if he was to go up there as maybe a volunteer instead of on the taxpayer's dime and promoting his project. If his project is, I'm sure it's a big hit around, he shouldn't have any problem perhaps paying his own way up and promoting his own project just to make it a little bit more tolerable or tasteful. I seriously do have a problem. Even if Phil was going up, but Phil has giving us a donation. This is a donation that he gave us. Phil LeBlanc, yeah, has gave us a donation. And we just pass that out along with all the information about Yarmouth. We don't have any taste test or anything like that there. I have a problem, Your Worship, with on that aspect of it, that the taxpayers are going to foot his bill to go up there where he can give taste tests to his product. His product can be bought. I'm sure it's online around wherever. If he wants to sell his product, I suggest perhaps he ought to go further than where he's going now. So anyway, that's my problem with it.
Thank you. Councillor Langell.
Sorry, Your Worship, not to drag this out, but when I made the motion, I had assumed that he was going just as a citizen. I didn't realize until after that he's going to be selling a sample or giving samples. And to explain, we've been giving these kippers out, and I haven't even talked to Phil LeBlanc. I don't know whether you've talked to him, Sandy, or not on those cans of sardines, but he's usually given us 2,000. I've usually asked him every year for around 2,000 cans of sardines, which is a fair amount of product. We do not promote his product. We simply say the only promotion we call it is we proudly say it's the only probably pure product in Nova Scotia that's done in a town, because the containers, the labeling, everything is produced here in Yarmouth, and Phil's very proud of that fact that he does it all locally. So, and we do sticker it, but we don't promote IMO seafoods or any of the IMO branding. We just simply hand them out as a sample, that's all. So I have an issue, and I'm going to have to withdraw my support. I have to withdraw the motion that I made because I did not realize that he was going to be doing it as a corporate entity. I agree. I think it's very awkward to have. We'd have to open it up to other areas. I mean, we've got Carino Confections, for example. Prime example, there's beautiful little chocolates, you know what I mean? We get people in the farmers market who do magnificent products, you know what I mean? That, what do we do here? Do we open it up to them? I don't know, but I have to, so maybe if somebody else wants to move the motion, they can, but I would have to respectfully withdraw my moving of the motion because I'm a little awkward with that too.
Okay. So you're
are you still not
removing
gonna
your motion? Because I don't think, I can say this, I don't think the intention was at all to go sell or anything like that. He genuinely just wanted to go up and help, and the bonus was that there would be extra stuff there that he would hand them out. But I understand what you're saying, and I think, can we table it and talk to Gary maybe and see what happens? Because, you know, I know his intention is.
I'd love Gary to go for it.
Yeah, I know, he's a great ambassador. Great ambassador.
You gotta know.
Yeah. Yep, just the logistics.
Or do we just want to go back to Councillor Langell and Councillor McIsaac going?
I think if you want Councillor Dennis, I
Okay.
think Councillor Dennis wants to talk to Mr. Kent and just relay some of the concerns we had at the table. And if he feels comfortable still going, then I think by all means, I'd love Gary to go. He's a wealth of knowledge about the local area.
No problem.
Music,
Okay.
history, you know, the lighthouse, he's well known, so I'd love Gary to go.
Okay.
Good, okay, so we'll just leave it, we're good? All right. You're going? No. Yeah. Okay,
But there was a motion
You-
made? So there should be a motion.
yeah, I don't, yeah, go ahead, but we,
Sorry about that, Your Worship, but I just had to go.
too much information, but give us some
No,
more.
I had to step out.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, when I, thinking back, people that want to go to Saltscapes to sell a product usually rent booths. We are going to Saltscapes to sell Yarmouth. Any other individual like Gary, there's nothing stopping Gary from renting his own booth. That's all I'm saying, okay? And that's it, okay. Oh, okay, good, thank you.
Yep, good. Okay,
You should do a motion to table, though, to,
I make a motion that we table the issue of Gary Kent attending Saltscapes until the next meeting of the committee of the whole.
okay, so moved. Second. Any more discussion? Wait a minute, Councillor Dennis?
And one more question. Did you already speak with Phil LeBlanc about life skills labeling?
I will contact him.
Okay.
He promised me last year 2,000 cans, so.
Yeah, we already got that, but you made a
the
motion
labels.
to have life skills label all the cans. So have you worked with that?
That was a motion of council.
Yes. So you want me to give you the labels to go work with Sherry? Okay.
Good? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. UNSM? Somebody added UNSM. You did. Go
Your
ahead.
Worship, spring conference is coming up in Pictou, and with council permission, I'd like to attend this year. I know it's usual policy here at the table that if councillors wish to go to a conference or an event, we usually do it by a motion of council. So I just want to indicate if somebody wants to let me go, I would like to attend that because there's a few little issues that I've been following. So, and this is the one in Pictou. It's a spring workshop for UNSM in May.
Who else is going?
I'd like to go, Your Worship.
Counselor, I think we're all going. You're going? You going? Counselor Dennis? Counselor Dawes?
Spring workshop in Pictou.
UNSM, spring workshop. Are you? When is that? May.
May
7th and
the
6th, 7th, and 8th.
6th, 7th, and 8th.
And 9th.
And 9th.
Well, the meeting's on the 6th, you have to be there by the 6th, 7th, 8th, and it's over the 9th.
Well, Linda, what's the?
I think we should have it on the books. I mean, usually we bring to the table when we're going to go to conferences, so that's what I've always done anyway.
What's that? Oh, it hasn't come on site yet. Okay, so hotel room. So if you want to let Linda know as soon as possible, we're good. Go ahead, Councillor.
We approved the saltscapes, well, kind of, that's kind of in advance, but this is the UNSM Spring Workshop, and I really think it should be on the books who's going, you know. I know in the past, when I've gone to conference, I've usually brought it up, and it's always been a request to council that, for a councillor to go. At least that's always been in my case anyway. I don't think there's been any conference I've not gone to that council has not given me permission for.
CAO?
So what we're going to be proposing, and you would have saw in this morning's budget package, excuse me, is that within the budget we're proposing that you approve an allocation for travel and education funds for each councillor, and that your use of that is not at the decision of council, but at your decision based on what you feel are the best opportunities for you related to your committee and council responsibilities. And so then you have a budget and you can deal with it. Sometimes there are things that come up on fairly short notice that you find out about, but you don't have to bring every one of those back to council.
Go ahead, Councillor.
I think it's very proactive because I do know that many towns are doing exactly that, and I think that's a very good idea. So will that be enforced for this year? Would a motion be in order for people to UNSM this year, or is that going to be regular? Okay. Also, with regard to the water utility as well, will there be a similar situation, or will that fit within that same amount? Because there's a couple of items coming up there, but that can be a separate. As councillor, could still bring a motion to council for a separate item if one arrived. Is that the intent, or would you be strapped to that particular group? You have some individuals who may travel a lot, and other individuals who may not travel at all, and I'm just wondering what the balance would be there.
Well, the intention in doing it this way is that every councillor would have a pot of money with which to plan their travel and education for whatever committees they're involved with, whether it's Communities in Bloom or water utility or whatever, or airport, or whatever. You have your allocation, and you spend it according to where you feel your time is best spent. And there is no, at this point, I don't believe there's any other pot within the budget that we would then go to if your allocation was used up. So it would be a matter of planning ahead and thinking about where you want to spend your time and resources.
Don't leave yet, Jerry. I got a question for you.
Go ahead, you're on.
Now that we know that the water utility is a separate entity, and we all know that, is there a travel and education component in their budget? Not even for the chair?
Did you hear that question, Jerry? Water utility.
Water utility. I know the water, and it all depends what committees you sit on, but I almost consider the water utility a separate entity than, even though we're elected and we're all on the water utility, I can almost consider it a separate entity than the council. I know the scope of work, it's a little different. I know we have to reconcile the monies that we spend, the monies that we bring in, the work that we have to do underground, the work we have to do at the sewer treatment plant, the work we have to do at Lake George. But I think that the chair, I think there should be, and maybe we can look at it when we do the water utility budget, but I think there should be a separate component in the water utility one compared to council, because I think all depends on your workload at council. And I think water utility, with the new regulations that are coming in and that are being not only, and we don't have much consultation on these, but they're being downloaded to the municipal units. I think somebody, and I know Ken or Councillor Langell is very proactive sitting in the chair at water utility. We've rebuilt the relationship out there in Lake George. It was very toxic and strenuous when we first started, and we built up a really good relationship, and I'd hate to see any of that that downgraded, but I think the utility, I think maybe if we look at that in the budget this year, I'd like to, when we bring the water utility budget in, I think that should be a separate component.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis?
How do we know how much that it's allotted to each counselor to go to the UNSM and whatever courses?
The numbers will be brought forward at the next meeting, but basically what we did is we looked at the amount that's been allocated over the last, well, over the last year, I guess, Jerry, and 2 or 3 years, and then just simply divided up evenly among the council members. So I think the number's in the area of 4,500. Is that a little more than that? 5,500? Yeah, so that's what we're looking at. So to answer your question, if you're thinking about attending the UNSM conference, typically the registration fees are online. The mileage can be calculated at our rate. Each councillor would know what their food requirements are, and then it's a matter of hotel prices, which are typically included with the registration package, are they not? Do they not include what the hotel rates are? No, so you'd have to. They don't have the, okay, so Linda makes those arrangements and she can advise you on that.
Thank you, and I want to thank Councillor Mooney on that. The reason I brought that up is I attended last year a water conference in Ottawa, which was absolutely gold, and as many of my colleagues here know, I don't willy-nilly go to conferences or meetings. I always go where I'm going to get the bang for the buck. And just for council information, a lot of information from that one meeting was huge that we brought back here, especially with the watershed, this whole watershed inventory, and especially the whole regulations that we're now developing to make that watershed more sustainable. But my concern is, and I agree with Councillor Mooney, if I'm lumped in there, that conference alone is huge. I mean, that was a lot of money. You starting a trip to Ottawa and back, et cetera, that's like an FCM, and you're kind of restricting an individual on that one. I'd like to personally see within the water utility budget a fee set aside, not only for the chair, but for other councillors who may want to go to something that does come up. Now, that was a very unusual conference. Councillor Dawes attended, but she went on her own dime, more or less. She was in Ottawa at the time, so it wasn't a great cost to the town. But I'd like to see a little chunk of change put in that water utility for some of the councillors members who may want to go to that, because there was some pretty involved stuff. Like right now, we're looking at rain barrels, for example, in the town. We're looking at the sewage, wastewater. There was a lot of individual information. We have flow meters, et cetera, that have came out of that conference. So I'd like to see us, if at all possible, if staff would look at that as putting a chunk of change in there.
Good? Yeah. Taking notes, Chair? Good, thank you. Okay, so there's nothing more on that one? Correctional facility. Go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. I don't know if I'm in a conflict with this or not, where I teach there. I don't know if I am or not. But anyway, just want to let you know, Your Worship, that this year is the 10th anniversary of the Southwest Nova Correctional Facility here in Yarmouth. And Superintendent Troy Foote has asked me if I would ask Council if he could attend the next meeting of Council on Thursday, April the 10th, to make a short presentation to 17th, I'm sorry, to make a short presentation to council. It's in honor of the commitment of the town. The facility is very pleased. In fact, it's quite an advanced facility. In fact, the CAO doesn't know this. We're just putting in our new little. You're going to love this. Jeff, you being the techie, you're going to love this. We've just installed, it's not operational yet, a solar heating dish that'll be using the sun. It attracts the sun all day long, and it's heating all our domestic hot water on the facility. It's absolutely, it's techie's dream. But anyway, we really enjoy the relationship with the town of Yarmouth, and as a result, the superintendent would like to make a presentation to the town. Communication Nova Scotia is going to be doing a release, and I spoke with the mayor earlier today. But a lot of people don't realize, and Councillor McIsaac, who was also an employee there, in fact, I credit Councillor McIsaac for one of the ones that getting the actual facility built years ago. That facility employs well over 40 people, very large paying jobs in our community, et cetera, et cetera. So, Your Worship, I'd like to make a motion that the town of Yarmouth invite Superintendent Troy Foote of the Southwest Nova Scotia Correctional Facility to attend a meeting of council on April the 17th, 2014.
Moved and seconded. Any more discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Go ahead.
Just one quick question for those who don't know. I mean, I thank him for that comment about I was instrumental in getting the new center built here. I just went on the record when I was on council making requests and stuff at that time. And our former MLA, Richard Hurlbert, he said the same as what Councillor Lanzo says. For those who didn't know that, I don't claim any credit, but he made the comment, not me. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Housing, I think I know what this is because I just sent a note. I sent a note to. Did you send a note? I sent a note to Zach, and go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just being out on the roads over the last couple of months, came to my attention that we had a conversation with Minister Fury in here, Mark Fury, Minister of Service Nova Scotia, talking to him about moving government offices, try to get them back into this end of town, into Yarmouth Centre, but there might be a foot or of movement to maybe moving community services and or housing to the Yarmouth or the Hebron Residential Center. So you sent a note to Zach Churchill, but I think we should investigate that, and I think any losing of any services in the town of Yarmouth is something that we shouldn't tolerate. We asked Minister Furry to bring those closer to downtown, and I know it's going to inconvenience anybody that's a client or is living in senior housing that doesn't have access to transportation. Going out to Hebron is going to be an inconvenience. So hopefully with your note to Minister Churchill, he can talk to the powers that be. Hopefully they can quash this, but
let's make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we send correspondence to our MLA Zach Churchill and the Minister of Community Services and Housing, discussing their long-range plans for offices on Stars Road.
Okay, moved and seconded. Go ahead.
This is, with what Councillor Mooney's commenting is absolutely terrible, and I do hope it's not going to happen. We already lost them from the downtown core. A lot of the people that use the services do not have vehicles. They do not have transportation. We do not have a transportation system that can get them from the town of Yarmouth to Hebron, to the residential center. And I think we should do, as a council, whatever we can do. It should be the opposite. They should be moving back into the downtown core, not moving out of the provincial building, because my view is okay, we're going to move to the provincial building. What's the next step? Going to be Meteghan, and then Digby, and then eventually probably Kentville, like everything else tends to move to in this community, which is in government offices. So I really think we have to make a real push, and I really encourage the mayor to really jump on the bandwagon on this one. This is a huge thing for a lot of the poorer families of our community. They need access. It's bad enough where it's in Stars Road right now, because you actually look at the location of public housing, it's at the opposite end of town, folks. I mean, they got their offices down in Yarmouth North, and Yarmouth South is where most of the housing is. I mean, and a lot of these people do not have the luxuries of transportation, and they're on very fixed, limited incomes. And to move that out to Hebron, to me, is a flag. Well, it's a flag to me that they're actually serious about closing their offices. What's the next thing they're going to do? Because people need to be able to get access to these people. Housing is critical in this community. So thank you, Mayor Mooney, for bringing, Councillor Mooney, for bringing that up.
I'll have that conversation. So the motion's on the floor. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. And I have one thing under additions that I didn't add, but it's just because I just got an email with your permission from Mr. Condon for the NSIFP to hold a reception as their last. I'm requesting the NSIFP be allowed to expense their last undertaking, and it's when the ship comes here. And I don't think they're even asking for money because they've got money in the budget, so. So moved. Seconded. Any more discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Okay, for action, Milton School Committee. Would anybody like to speak? Just kidding. Youth Engagement Coordinator trip to Ecuador. Sorry about that, I just can't see.
That's okay, no. Received and placed on file, unless you want to answer it. I don't suggest that we, this is from Toronto?
Okay, wait 1 second now, I'm just getting it. Okay, oh, from Toronto. Okay, good, received and placed on file.
That's my
Do we need a
motion, Your Worship.
for that? Moved and seconded. Any more discussion? That we place this letter on file. Okay, any more discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Good. Mrs. Ruda, lost to the sea monument.
That needs to be addressed.
Yes. Is your light on?
Yeah. The light's on and there is
Time of
somebody
day.
home.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Councillor.
That's all right. Your Worship, I just read the letter here. I think this can be easily remedied, and I'll leave it in yours and the CEO's capable hands to look after this. Would that be fair for you to do that, Your Worship? Or would the CEO?
Who can take that off? That would be,
Or do you want to leave it to the Heritage Committee? The chairperson's here, Councillor Langio. Maybe he could address it.
Councillor Dawes?
Thank you, Your Worship. How did this happen in the first place? This is embarrassing. And I'm sure this just kept reopening
Old wound.
very sad wounds for a mother. Where did this come from? How did this happen?
I would say with thousands of names, the chances of somebody passing in a name and thinking they were doing the right thing, maybe that's what happened.
But this monument is for those that were lost at sea or lost to the sea. Is that not correct?
It is.
And if someone's name is does no one check these out?
I don't know. Everything was checked out, but
Who knows how many other errors are listed on there?
The problem was, in retrospect, and I was only involved with the project initially through the 250th when we got the initial funding, and then it was turned over to a second group. The original intent of the monument was lost to the sea, and this would be people who died at sea. Then we kind of looked at people lost, who were somewhat near the sea. On a lake, we have one guy who's on the monument that literally fell off a boat drunk in Boston Harbor, to be perfectly honest, but technically he died at sea, so he's on the monument. It was one of those things that I think people were just reluctant not to leave off names. And in retrospect, that's why the thing blew up with the number of names we have. We have a large number of names on that monument. The other thing we have to be careful of too, Councillor Dawes, is that there are some similar names. So I do know I had a couple of people contact me through the Heritage Committee concerned that a name was on the monument that shouldn't be there. But when it was pointed out that this person was not the person who they thought it was, that it was another individual, it becomes an issue. I'll give you an example. In one particular case, in 1 year in Yarmouth, we had 4 Pearl Jarvises. A very unusual name, 4 Pearl Jarvises, but there are 4 of them. So you don't know. So there's a similarity, it's there, so there could be an error there as well. But I do know they were very, very careful. There was the other question is what happens when the individual when they died literally in their bed on a boat. We had a case, one chap, I think, was in that situation in Hong Kong Harbor where he passed away. Well, technically he was at sea, so he rates the monument. So that's how the thing was set up. So they tried to be as all-inclusive. The research was extremely thorough. They had an excellent committee. It was done through the Historical Society. They did a wonderful job, very, very thorough, and I don't think you would find many mistakes. I know we may have left off a name and they looked at that, but I would suggest that maybe this letter should be directed to one of the members of that committee for them to maybe look at, and maybe a suitable response be sent back, because I do know that at the museum, and Councillor Mooney, you can correct me because you were mayor at the time, or maybe the CAO can correct me, but I believe that there's an actual website that actually lists all of the individuals and the relationships that they are there, so you can actually go on and see the reason why they're there. So